So welcome to Business Basics Boot Camp. So we put this day together super intentionally to try to give you guys a ton of information that you need in order to run your businesses. And so David is going to start our morning with some basics about the business that you don't really learn anywhere, kind of those unspoken rules. So I will let David take it away.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Robin. So just to get an idea here, how many of you are brand new in the business, brand new in the industry? And if you're not on camera, you can do the reaction thing and put a hand up if you're there. Okay, James, you're new. I think
Hi, I'm new.
Hey, Tina?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Yep, and Frederick's new. Okay, great. Awesome. And just to get a foundation, kind of foundational idea here, did any of you guys come into the business specifically to join a team? Or you might be, or are you up in the air? You could be there too, right? So, so I just want to get an idea there too, so I can guide things the right way too.
It wasn't my initial plan, but I've definitely considered it after hearing more about it.
Right. Okay. Great. Well, that could be a good starting point. Okay. So, so I'm going to talk about a few things that, depending on your background, some of these things might be things that you had experience with in previous jobs, previous businesses. To some of you, some of this will be new, but what I want to make sure of is I want to make sure that we fill in any gaps that might be present in terms of getting your real estate business going. So we're going to talk a bit about business presence and how you will need to show up as a business owner, essentially. We're going to talk a little bit about lead generation. We're going to talk about scripts and dialogues a little bit, and then we're going to talk a little bit about actually getting out in the field and specifically showing and previewing properties, some best practices. So just so you guys know, I have a 10 o'clock meeting, so I'll probably be done here, well, no later than 9:55. So I'll have to bounce off about 5 minutes early to transition to my other call. But feel free to chime in either through chat or to turn or unmute yourself and speak up if you have any questions along the way. So feel free to do that. All right. So starting with business presence, a few things that you're going to want to address right out of the gate is, number one, your email. We recommend that you have a separate business email. That's not the same as your personal email when you're in this business. And even if you're not sure why right now, maybe you have kind of an email that's addressed to you feel that can pass for either. The idea is you're going to get busy enough and you're going to have enough business emails going back and forth. You're going to want to be able to push your personal email off to the side and say, I'll check that later. And where your business email may take precedence. And so you're not having to juggle everything through one email address. Then with that said, well, also back up one step. If you don't already have it or didn't know, you have a KW email address as well. So that's a good recommendation too. If you have your own domain name, for example, that's fine too, but you always have your kw.com email address that is a perfectly good, valid business email address. But then as far as email signature is concerned, make sure you have a professional email signature. And by professional email signature, it means it has your name, it has the brokerage. You're actually supposed to have the brokerage address too in your, in there as well. Have your phone number. If you have, and this isn't a requirement, but it helps. But if you have social media links, like here's a link to my Facebook, here's a link to my LinkedIn, or whatever it might be, throw those in your signature as well. So by professional signature, doesn't mean it has to be done by a professional graphic designer or something, although you can make them look pretty nice. Just make sure you have your business information in that as well. And look at that on your phone too, because a lot of people miss that part. If they do a lot of emailing on their phone and they don't have an email signature, go put one on there too. So, all right. Business cards. I know you guys, some of you guys might already have those on order. Our office provides some initially, and we're still doing that, right, Robin? Did you get an initial small little batch of temporary cards?
If they are licensed at the time of joining, or if they need them before their business cards come in and they're licensed.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So that's also one of the things right out of the gate. Business cards are dirt cheap, and there are several places to go for them. They're KW templates, and so make sure you have business cards, because if you're right now, just kind of fast forwarding to showing and previewing. As of today, you don't have to leave a business card behind, and because of the COVID restrictions. Eventually, the NWMLS will probably come back and start saying leave a business card behind. And so at some point, as the restrictions get lifted, you may not be able to preview or show homes without your business cards. So keep in mind, you want to have enough. This is why you want to probably order 1,000 of them, is because if we get back to the point where they start requiring business cards, us to leave business cards behind for showings and previews, you're going to want to have a lot available. So assuming you'll be out there a lot, right? So, all right. Online presence. So think social media, think website, things like that. So I would highly recommend you go review your social media. Especially if you've been pretty active on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, anywhere you've been active on social media, and go back to your past posts and see if any should be deleted. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. If I recommend deleting a post, your clients and prospects will oftentimes see you on social media. They'll do research on you, and if every picture that you posted is you partying, maybe that might trigger a potential client, and they'll be like, I don't know if this is the one I want to deal with. Now, it may do the opposite. They may be like, oh, this is what I want to hang out with. But you don't want to potentially alienate the other half, right? Think politics, think other things too. Like if you've made some divisive posts, maybe consider deleting those, because people go past it, they'll look at your past feeds. So just review your social media. And then things like LinkedIn, for example, make sure you have what you currently do on LinkedIn. I see a lot of people on LinkedIn still have their old jobs on there. But you're not a secret agent. You want to make sure that everybody knows that you're in this business. As far as websites are concerned, we have KW website available. My recommendation is don't spend a massive amount of time setting up your website. It's pretty quick and easy to set up. And you don't need to add a whole bunch of content on right now, especially as a new agent. Now you're going to think as you build things up, you'll start adding on to it over time. You do not need to have a super comprehensive website right now today. Just have someone from a place for people to go to, essentially, because your business is going to start with referrals, people in your sphere of influence, people that you're going out and meeting. It's not your website that's initially going to draw people in. That's not where your first deal is going to come from. And then think about other real estate related sites, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Homes.com, things like that. So start writing up a profile. And if you don't know how to write up a realtor profile, so to speak, go look at some other people's and see what they've written. You might be thinking, well, what can I write? I just got in the business. You'll get some ideas as far as things that you can write in a profile, and then put that at, set up a free Zillow account, a free agent account in Zillow. Put your profile, put your bio in there. Set up your account in Realtor.com. Put your bio in there. And my recommendation is when you put your bio in all these different major sites, mix it up a tiny bit on each one if you can. Don't just paste the exact same thing in every place. The reason for that is because from a search engine perspective, if you have keywords that someone might be searching for that they might find in your bio, if you have the exact same thing in several different places, it's going to get indexed once. Everything else is going to be considered a duplicate, and it's not going to come up on search engine results. Now, I'm kind of going from beginning to advanced sort of like in that, but that's just one thing to consider that's really, really easy to do. And I'm talking just changing a couple sentences, changing the order stuff a little bit, in your bio when you put it out on these different sites. So it's slightly different on each one. That makes sense? Okay. All right. And then as far as how to present yourself. So we are kind of always going to be under a microscope in this business because we are in an always on business. And what that means is that if you are used to going to the grocery store in your pajamas, maybe consider stepping up one level from there at least. What I mean by that is you might run into someone that's a prospect, client, someone who you might want to be client to someone who's a friend or whatever. And if you look like, how can I put it? If you look really unprofessional, like too unprofessional, I don't mean going to Home Depot in a suit and tie or something like that, right? But you know what I mean. It's being appropriate for the conditions so people don't think you're just weird. But consider how you're showing up wherever you're going. And that might mean sometimes stepping up a level and being conscious about how you dress when you go out in public. Because everywhere that you are out in public in this business is an opportunity to get a client. I had a service person in my house yesterday to fix my treadmill. So I'm in my own house. I could have been dressed way down. I wasn't. I was dressed one level up. Guess why? See the prospect. Right? We talked about the business. He might decide to become a real estate broker. So he took my card and said, yeah, I've been considering doing this. So you never know when you're going to have a prospect in front of you. And he did fix my treadmill, by the way, so it does work now. So I'll get in the shape again. But look at those opportunities. I've gotten clients before from previewing houses. First time this happened, I was previewing a house. And I usually dress business casual at minimum when I would preview houses. And so people will think, but you don't have anyone with you and the seller's not even there. Well, I would go preview houses. And this one time I walked out in the driveway, neighbor comes across the street and says, oh, are you the listing agent? I said, no, I'm actually just previewing for clients. And they're like, oh, interesting. Yeah, my sister's been looking for a house. I'm like, oh, where's your sister live? Well, she's from Portland and she's been hounding me all the time, having me send her houses and stuff and like drive by houses and everything. And it's a real pain. I'm like, well, how would you like someone to take that off your hands? She's like, oh, I love it. Here's my sister's number. Here's her name and number. Called the sister, got a new buyer. So you never know. Now, if I was dressed in a t-shirt and sweats or something like that, and just really not looking professional at all, I don't know if that neighbor would have approached me, right? So yeah, so I'm slightly similar situation as well. It does happen. So does that make sense? Any questions on that as far as business presence and maybe how to show up? Things that are good to address right out of the gate here. Okay, good. One little tip before I move on to the next thing, and this has to do with email and to an extent text, is be sure to go back and review what you're sending before you send it. So I don't know, some of you guys have probably been in this situation, you type an email out and you send it, you're like, oh shoot, did I just say that? Or it auto-corrected their name and you didn't notice, and you called them some derogatory name and you didn't actually mean to. It just auto-corrected something, right? But you will lose credibility really fast if people get lost in your emails and texts because they don't know what you're saying, because you made some typos or some words got auto-corrected that shouldn't have, things like that. So take the minute and go back and proofread before you hit send. Go back and proofread it and make sure. I know with me, I'm generally pretty accurate, but I'm surprised at how many times I go back. I'm like, really, did I say that twice? Let me delete the duplicate there. So, all right, good. So moving on, lead generation. So I'm going to mention this here because you're going to hear this a lot, and you're going to hear it so much probably that you're going to get annoyed. And you're going to be like, oh, all I ever hear is lead generate, lead generate, lead generate. So I'm going to help you understand why you're going to hear that is because we're in a lead generation business. That's what we're in the business of. We're in the business of lead generation. We're not in the business of selling houses. Now, that's a product that houses sell themselves, right? If you take a buyer out to a house and they fall in love with it, how hard is it, do you think, to talk them out of the house? Kind of hard, isn't it? Right? If they're in love with it, or if they hate the house, how hard is it to talk them into the house? Oh, no, this is a really good house. You should really buy it. No, they're not going to buy that, are they? So the houses really sell themselves in a sense, and we're providing a service, right? And so our lead generation is essentially lead generating for the service that we provide. Because here's the one thing, if you don't have any clients, you don't have any business. You don't have a business without clients. You take that one piece out of the mix, you're out of business. So we are in the, Gary Keller says we are in the lead generation business. We just happen to sell real estate. It just happens to be the product or service that we deal with, the vehicle that gets us there. So from the lead generation perspective, here are a couple of things to understand. You are in sales. Now, this isn't like used car sales. They're sophisticated sales. We're going to put ourselves in that sophisticated sales category. So you don't have to think of yourself as, ooh, I'm like this sales guy over here that I met at Best Buy or whatever. Not to put down Best Buy. They've got some good salespeople too. So bottom line is we are in sales. We sell ourselves and our services. And so the question is who is our target? So like what source do we want to go after or focus on to get that business? So that's one question you're going to have to answer as you get started in your business. So one that is recommended for everybody in this business, every single agent in this business, is your sphere of influence, is who you know. Now, what's interesting is for a lot of people who are new in this business, that tends to be the last group that they want to actually reach out to. Anyone know why?
Are they just nervous about, bothering them maybe?
Yeah. It could be they're nervous about bothering them. They don't want to sound salesy. They don't want to be pushy. They don't want to think that they're friends to think that they're only friends because you can get something out of them, right? That we create all these stories, right? Or we don't want to be rejected by our friends potentially. Yeah, you're new. I don't know if I want to deal with someone that's new. Now, by the way, people will deal with someone that's new. So I threw that out there as really an objection that can be handled. So yeah, there are a lot of things. And so we've literally had people come into the business and say, well, I'll talk to anybody except the people I already know. And you can do that. You can actually build a business that way. It just takes a lot more work. It'll just take more work. So if we circle back around to our sphere of influence, realize that people who know you, who generally like you, because they won't do business with you if they don't like you, right? But if they generally like you, they're also going to want to support you and help you out. And there's nothing wrong with asking for their support. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I just got my real estate license. I'm with Keller Williams, largest real estate brokerage in the world. We've got really great support. I'm on a team. I've got a coach. I've got whatever. I got all this support behind me, as a new real estate broker. So people who work with me get the best of both worlds. They get the expertise of the people that I'm working with that are right in my back pocket. But they also have me where I don't have like 20 clients yet. And so I can focus. I can spend a lot of time making sure you get the best service possible. Isn't it great to get the best of both worlds? Right? And you can I kind of combined two conversations there, by the way. So when you call them, you're really going to be asking for their support. You'll be mentioning that you got your real estate license. You may be introducing them to your app and say, hey, I'm gonna text you, a link to my app, and so you can search for properties, anytime. Also too, we've known each other for a while, and so I'm new in the business, but I'd love to have your support. So if you happen to think of someone that was looking at buying or sell a home, is that someone you'd be able to send over my direction? Who do you know is looking at buying or selling a home? Most people will say they'd be willing to support you, right? So just understand, and if you have to practice that conversation, we'll be getting into scripts here in a minute. But you have to practice that conversation so it doesn't feel awkward. Practice it by yourself out loud before you make the call, over and over and over and over again if you need to. And if you make a call to someone and it's someone you might feel uncomfortable talking to, maybe they were a former boss or something like that, just be authentic. Hey, you might have heard, I'm not sure if you heard, but I'm in the real estate business. I'm with Keller Williams. Got a lot of great support, got a lot of great things going. I'm calling you, which, by the way, this is a little bit of an uncomfortable call because of our relationship and everything. But I have a lot of respect for you, and and I like you, and I like to work with people that I like. And part of my business is working with people, working by referral. So I wanted to reach out to you and just see, if you were ever looking at buying or selling a home, or had a friend or family member who was, do you already have a realtor that you'd be working with or refer to? And you'll be amazed at how the responses come back. Yeah, sometimes they might have one. Sometimes they won't. They'll be like, no, I totally wouldn't. But it's like, well, I'd love to be that one. From time to time, I send out information and value, and my clients, friends, and family, they find very useful. Would you like me to send some stuff to you? It's like once a month. Or whatever it is. Obviously you don't say it unless you're actually going to send them something, but that's kind of how that goes. You can be authentic. You can let someone know that that, hey, this is a little bit uncomfortable conversation for me because I haven't been in businesses where I've worked by referral, but I'm working by referral now. This is my lifeblood of my business. And so I have to make sure that I do a good enough job that even someone that I work with will be willing to work with me again and refer me to their friends and family. Right? So you can have that level of conversation. So anyways, I went into a little bit more detail than I normally do on sphere of influence, but sphere of influence and database. Database is your sphere of influence plus past clients plus anybody that you've met, basically. So you have your database. Now, there's other lead generation sources to consider. I know in the coaching program, we have what we call a lead generation pyramid, and it has the most effective at the top, and then it goes down to some of the least effective, and then you can combine some of the least effective with most effective to make them more effective, and so on. But just to summarize this in a couple minutes, you've got at the top of this pyramid, basically, you've got your database sphere of influence. As you start moving down, you get sign calls for listings. So obviously you have to get a listing in order to have a sign call from a sign, right? So open houses, for example, open houses are good lead generation. As you start moving down, you get like expired listings, you got for sale by owner. And then as you move down farther in this pyramid, they start to get less and less effective. But essentially what it means is you have to spend more time or money to get the same result. And so networking events, that's working down the pyramid, but I've gotten business from networking events before. So and as we start to open up this summer, networking events will start moving from online to in person again. The in-person ones are actually the most effective in my opinion. You can do new buyer seminars, new buyer workshops, for example, first time home buyer workshop type things. Some people do that even out of the gate as new agents. All you have to do is come up with some content and then start pulling people in, right? And then there are things like down at the bottom of the pyramid, which would be like paid leads. And I will warn everybody right now about paid leads. The fastest thing that puts new agents out of business is buying leads before you've closed several transactions. So you guys will be targets. Lists come out of people who just got licensed, and there are telemarketers that will call and salespeople that will call and say, I've got the easy button for you. We're going to send you this many leads a month. These are all layups, high quality leads. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So bottom line is your first deal, for most agents, their first transaction comes from their sphere of influence or an open house. For about probably 80% of new agents. That's where their first transaction comes from. I can't remember a time when someone's first transaction came from a paid lead. I honestly can't think of it. We've run 500 people through our coaching program over the last 6 years. And I don't know of a single first closing that came from a paid lead. So I hope that hits home, because you'll get to a point, you'll be like, oh my gosh, this business is kind of hard. I have to work, I have to practice, I have to get better at it. This is not easy. And I'll tell you guys, it's not easy, but you can do it because you will continue to get better. You'll have to move out of your comfort zone. But it's that point where you're like, oh gosh, I feel like I'm hitting my head against the wall a little bit. That's the point where you're susceptible to those pitches. So just be careful. Just think about it. Say, oh, am I at this point where I'm frustrated? They know I'm going to be frustrated right around this point in my business. And that's why they're calling you. Say, yeah, you've kind of been beating your head against the wall for the last 60 days, haven't you? Yeah, how would you like to make this easy, right? So be careful on that. So does that make sense on the lead generation side? As far as I know, that's kind of a high level thing on lead generation. Does anyone have any questions around that? Anything any gaps that you still have there? I know it's really high level.
When you said about the leads, is it because the conversion is way harder for newer people? They don't have the scripts. They don't have and obviously the leads, those leads are harder anyway. They're cold leads, right? That's mainly the reason, because to be able to convert them, you don't have sort of the skill set to do it.
It's that conversion skill set. Yes, that's a large part. Well, there's two things. Usually someone who's buying leads, at first they think the leads are going to be higher quality than they are. And when you get leads and you realize that these leads, particular leads that you're getting, have a 2% conversion rate, that means that 1 out of 50 will turn into a client. And what happens is, so you're going through piles and piles of leads following up. And so it's a combination of, if a lot of times out of the gate, you don't have the systems necessary to do some of the automated follow-up that technology can offer, and drip campaigns and things like that. And also a lot of people don't have that muscle built, and the muscle built to stick with it time after time after time after time, right? To stick with a lead for 6 months while they're getting ready to get ready. So that's what a lot of it is because we sign up for those because we think, oh, that's going to get me a deal in the next 30 days. But the reality is most of it is long-term, farther out. And a lot of people aren't willing to take that amount of time to do the follow-up. So yes, it does come down to conversion is really what it comes down to, but also length of time on average to convert. So, all right. So moving on, and I kind of dipped my toe in this here in our last conversation, is on scripts and dialogues. So this is another point where people ask, well, I don't want to sound like a robot. I don't want to sound salesy. Oh, this script doesn't sound like me. How many of you have had a job where you had to have a script, like a phone script or some other kind of script where they say, this is what you say in this scenario? Anyone have that type of situation that they've been in? Frederick? Okay. In my experience, most people who have not been in positions before where they worked off of scripts will oftentimes have a little bit of resistance to scripts. And so I'm hopefully I'll clarify some things enough to get you guys buy-in that this is a good thing. So scripts, the purpose of scripts in this business is to help you communicate efficiently and effectively, to get the point across. Because what happens is, because we're in a business where we're converting, we're attempting to keep people connected with us, that we oftentimes end up in scenarios where we're not real comfortable. Do you think you're going to be in scenarios, as you start your business, where you might be a little uncomfortable? Think about maybe your first open house. Think about your first listing appointment, first buyer consultation. It's like the first house that you show. You're like, I hope this thing works, opening up the key box, right? All this stuff. Anytime in this business where when you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable or nervous, that's when we start kind of mixing up our communication. What I mean by that is, what do most people do when they're nervous? When they're meeting with someone and they're nervous? They keep talking. Yeah, and stutter too, yeah. But they're afraid of silence. Now that's a natural human thing, by the way. We're kind of programmed in our society to not like silence. And then when we don't feel like we're getting the point across because we're nervous and we're not saying it quite right, we have a tendency to just keep talking and rambling and talk too much. And so what scripts do is they keep us from doing that. So even if you're in a situation where you're nervous or uncomfortable, if you have this script and you have it internalized, then you're much more likely to keep that communication on point. So the person on the other side isn't thinking, I have no idea where they're going with this, right? We've seen that before. We've seen people at listing appointments where they basically talked so much that they talked the seller out of listing with them. The seller was ready to list with them. They never asked, they just kept talking and then left. And the person that was with them says, all they did was they just kept talking. And the seller was ready to sign. And the seller went and signed with someone else because they're like, I would have signed with you right there. But the next person who came in after you, they asked for the business. They communicated what they did and they said, are you ready to move forward? Right? But this person was nervous. They just kept rambling. So that can happen. So with scripts and dialogues, so we know the purpose is to know what to say in certain situations. Objection handlers, call scripts, in-person scripts, listing presentation, buyer consultation, all these things. Even open houses have scripts. Do you remember when I was giving you the example that said, if you were looking at buying or selling a home or had a friend or family member who was, do you have a realtor that you would currently use or refer to? Remember I was asking when you're talking to someone in your database? That's a script. I was just using a script. That's the script that we teach. That's what I call the qualifying script. Happen to be talking to someone, you let them know you're in the business. Oh, by the way, if you're ever looking at buying or selling a home, or had a friend or family member who was, am I the realtor that you would refer to? Or if you don't know them real well, you say, do you have a realtor that you refer to? Right? That's a script. It seems like a really simple script, doesn't it? Right? I challenge you to go out today and use that script with somebody and see how that works. Now, what I mean by that, because I'm being a little bit sarcastic right now, by the way, is if you don't practice it, you're going to do that script and it's going to fall apart. So if you do that, if you want to take me up on that practice, do it with like a spouse or a significant other or someone that you really trust, and see how it feels. Right? Someone that you're not going to lose by messing up the script. Because even a one sentence question, you'll start to figure out if you don't know it, if you don't have it internalized, it doesn't come out the same. So with that, you're going to have access to a lot of scripts and dialogues. If you're on a team, they're going to have their own scripts and dialogues for what they do. If you're in coaching, we have scripts and dialogues that we teach on. KW has piles of scripts and dialogues that you have access to. So the way I've always practiced scripts, there's several right ways to do this. The way I've always practiced scripts is I take the script, put it in front of me, I read it out loud over and over and over again as fast as I can. And then once I've gotten to the point where I can do it without looking at it, I'll set paper down and I'll just keep doing it over and over and over again. If it is a one sentence script, like, oh, by the way, if you're ever looking at buying or selling a home or had a friend or family member who was, am I the real estate agent that you choose? Something as simple as that. Think about how many times you could say that in a half hour. A couple hundred times maybe? So say it a couple hundred times in a half hour. Whatever it takes. Because you're probably going to have to say a script thousands of times before you have it internalized. Because the mistake that most people make with scripts is they'll practice until they've memorized it, until they no longer need to look at it on paper. They've just gotten to the memorization stage. And then they go out and they try to use it and they mess it all up. They fall on their face. And that's because of what I described earlier. You get a little bit nervous, you start forgetting what to say. The words just fall out of your head at that point. So again, if you want to test it out with that script, oh, by the way, if you're ever looking at buying or selling a home or had a friend or family member who was, am I the real estate agent you choose? You ever want to go practice that? Just do it without practicing and see how it feels. Or just memorize it, just like get to the point where you can say it and then wait a day and go say it to someone and see how it comes out. So that's why we go the next step, which is internalizing it. Now that's the difficult part, because if you look at from a timing perspective, it takes this much time to memorize it, this much time to internalize it. So the issue is it's boring to get to that, from that memorization to an internalization stage. It's boring. But bottom line is that's what's necessary. That's what people who succeed in the business do that people who don't succeed in the business do. The people who don't succeed in the business, they're not doing these things that are boring. They're monotonous. So this is really important. And also, if you're like, this script doesn't sound like me, memorize it, get to where you internalize it. You'll be surprised how much it sounds like you by the time you've internalized it. Just natural. And you might even change a word or two here and there, but internalize it, memorize it, and internalize it as the script is written, as exactly as it is. And you will naturally shift around a word or two here and there as necessary when you deliver it. You won't even have to think about it. And the reason I say when you practice it, just read it out loud as fast as you can over and over again, is because you don't need to practice delivery when you're getting to the point of internalizing it. Once you've internalized something, the delivery naturally comes out. You don't have to worry about how it's delivered. But you want to get it nailed. You want to get nailed in your head. Definitely. That makes sense? Okay. And if you're ever practicing scripts with a script partner, be on task. Practice the same script over and over again with them. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to practice this one open house script with you. And then you do that. And then you say, what are you going to do? And they do theirs. And then you say, okay, I'll switch to another script now. No, do the open house script again and again and again and again for however long you're on the phone or in front of them. Don't be afraid of doing that with a script partner. That's what they're for. Practice, even see how much, if you're improving in that half hour or whatever, 15 minutes or hour or whatever you're spending with it. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions about scripts, practicing scripts? All right, good. All right, so for this last part, I'll take this fairly quick, but I'm going to talk about showing and previewing properties. And this is big because this is how you really get immersed in the market to understand the market, is go out and preview properties. Now when I say previewing and showing, all that a preview is you're showing a house without the buyer. It's just you. That's the only difference. Everything's the same, except you just don't have a buyer with you. So generally the same practices, except you don't have the conversation with the buyers you're going through. So what I'm going to do, this is where I'm going to switch. Let me do this. I'm going to pull up. I've got some slides that will help me get through this a little bit faster. So let me do this. Let me switch this and let me share my screen. There we go. This. There. You guys can all see that now? All right. Move that way. Things out of the way there. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about showing homes, best practices. Some of this stuff will apply toward previewing as well. But I want to make sure you guys are on the right track, because this is something you should be doing at minimum previewing right out of the gate to get yourself familiar with the market and what's out there. All right, so let's start with prior to the showing. So like I mentioned before, dress professionally even when previewing. So I already explained why, so I don't have to really explain that. Review the showing instructions in Matrix. All of you have access to Matrix now? Pretty much. Most, okay.
Yeah,
good.
they all should.
Okay. two places you want to look for showing instructions in Matrix. No, number one, it will have, I think it will say showing instructions, and it will say whether there's key box or appointment or whatever. There's several. There's one spot that is showing instructions, but there's also agent remarks that you want to look at. So don't just look at showing instructions, because those are check boxes that the listing agent checks. Look at the agent remark, because it will give any information that says do not show unless blank, or do not show until blank, or it'll give you other instructions if necessary in that. So make sure you review that. That's where it'll say give minimum 1 hour notice, or right now it's a little bit easier because we're doing pretty much most of the scheduling through showing time. But sometimes that changes, and especially as restrictions are lifted, some people may choose not to use showing time, and they'll give additional instructions in there on how to schedule the showing. And then pull up the listing in HomeSpotter on your phone. That means you have to install the HomeSpotter app, by the way. The HomeSpotter app is pretty much the app to our MLS. So it's the sister app to Matrix, I guess you could say, for your phone.
Hey, David, does that, when you go on HomeSpotter, ask for your MLS information, is it the same? Should it be the same lag and the same username? Because mine, it never connects. I have to call MLS probably.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's actually supposed to be your same login as getting into NWMLS, getting into Matrix. So
yeah, mine never connects.
Yeah, so there might be something broken on yours that's causing that not to happen, but it should be the same login information. But the reason you want to have this app on your phone is because stuff is moving so fast on the market. You want to make sure, you might have scheduled the showing like last night for this afternoon, and you want to check before you actually go attempt to show the house that it hasn't gone pending. They haven't accepted an offer. And so the way you check that is, a couple of times you could check it. You could check it before you leave. Say, okay, is it still active? Yep, still active. Especially since we're scheduling stuff on showing time. And if a seller accepts an offer early, they don't always let all the other buyers know. So, but when you get to the house, pull up the listing on HomeSpotter and make sure it didn't just change over to pending. So, and then show up on time or early. This business, traffic will do things. Realtors are notorious for being late. That's just the way it is, right? So if you focus on being early, then that will be there to put you earlier on time. You gain a lot of credibility when you show up on time to everything with your clients. So plan on showing up on time or early, allow for traffic. Sometimes it's inevitable, but if you know you're running late and you're meeting someone at the property, let them know ASAP. Just text them and say, hey, heavy traffic, running 5 minutes late, whatever it might be. If I'm running 2 minutes late, I will let the client know by text before I get there, because we have a pretty good idea when we'll get there now, right? Even if we're running late. So during the showing, for now, we still have the COVID protocols. So you want to follow those protocols currently, as far as number of people allowed in the house, masks and stuff like that. Some of that will be lifted over the next, probably the next couple months. But right now, while there are still restrictions in place, make sure you're aware of those and you follow those. Then when you're showing, best practice is to lock the door, go in, get the key out of the key box, unlock it, go in, lock the door, and keep the little key holder with the key in your hand when you're showing the property. So if you lock the door behind you, that way someone else can't come in without scanning the key box. Because what happens is, we've seen this before, where someone does a showing and then someone else comes in and like, oh yeah, go ahead, we're leaving, you go ahead and here's the key. And they even confirm that that's an agent. And then that agent forgets to lock up the house on the way out. And guess who was the last one that they knew about, the seller knew about? It was you. And so you get the blame for someone else not locking the house. So best not to allow other people in the house while you are showing. So again, that kind of backs up again to be on time, so you don't have to overstay your time that you're there. So. Be aware of cameras on the property. So a lot of people have cameras. Now, sellers are not allowed to listen to audio on the cameras. That doesn't mean that they don't. So be prepared. right? So be careful of the conversations that you have inside a house. And be careful of the conversations that you have right outside of the house on the porch, front porch. There could be a camera there too. Make sure you're far enough away when you're having conversations about, oh yeah, I think we're willing to go up to 580 on this, right? Don't say that in the house or right on the front porch. Make sure you're out, you know, at a distance away from any possible camera that could have audio on that could hear you. And also keep in mind too, that they can see you too. So be careful there, because if the rule is to wear masks when showing and you're not wearing a mask and there are cameras in the house, you can get in trouble. So just be aware of that. And then when you're showing, ask for feedback from the buyer as you're showing the property. So what do you think of the kitchen? What's your first impression? Even before you go in the house, go and take them out to the end of the driveway, as long as it's not like a mile long driveway, but take them, you know, out to the end to where they can get some distance from the house. Say, give me your first impression on the house, just from the outside perspective. Right? They'll give you the first impression. If it's positive, say, what do you like best about it? Give them mentioning a couple features, details that they like. You want that feedback, even if they're not going to buy that house. It helps you understand what their hot buttons are. You go in, you show it. You know, you might go to the, let's say you're in the kitchen, you ask them, oh, what's your first impression? By the way, don't stand in the middle of the kitchen when you're asking that. So you stand behind them when you're asking that. Otherwise, you know, you're kind of distracting them from the view of the kitchen. So ask them a thing. What's your first impression? You know, you go at the master bedroom. What's your first impression? They're like, it's great, except I don't like this fireplace on this wall here. Oh, what's the issue with that? Well, I would put my bed there. Okay. So this is where you want to find out if it's a deal breaker. And you can, some situations you can say, well, is that a deal breaker? Or you can say, well, if you were already living here, how would you deal with that? Right? Because people will compromise. They always compromise. It doesn't matter if they're buying a $4 million house, they're going to make compromises. So allow them to make compromises. If they say this is a deal breaker, say, okay, are you ready to leave right now then? And if they say no, they say, oh, so it's not a deal breaker, right? Kind of play around with that a little bit. But you know, be okay with them saying it's a deal breaker. Oh, it's a deal breaker. Okay, let's go ahead and leave. We don't need to waste your time here if it's a deal breaker, right? Be okay with that. Move on to the next one. But you can, if you get their feedback along the way, then it's not such a big decision at the end of the showing. If you ask them, so do you like it enough to write up an offer? They're like, oh my gosh, it's just so much to take in, right? No, you've already asked them. You said, wow, it seems like you like pretty much everything about this house, doesn't it? Yeah. So are you ready to write up an offer? Yeah, it becomes a much smaller decision when they've made little decisions along the way by giving feedback. Oh, so thumbs up on the kitchen. Oh, back deck is great. Good. Outside space, great. Thumbs up. Okay, great. Right. Oh, master bedroom, great. Thumbs up. Yep. Living space. Oh, thumbs up. Okay, great. You're done with the showing. Huh. So it sounds like it's a thumbs up on everything. Was there, you know, would you agree? Yeah. Okay. Should we write up an offer? We even need to go and see the next house. Right. So that's why you want to ask for feedback along the way.
Hey, David, when you say that, right, and you say you're in the house, it's going well, would you like to write up an offer? And they say yes. Are you doing it right there? Do you have to get back to your office? What's that step look like when you get a yes standing in the home in this market, when you know, you probably have an offer review date, but what's that look like if you get the yes?
Great thing about being a new agent and technology today is that we don't need to write up an offer on site. Sometimes we would do that. We'd be like, hey, should we write up an offer? Great, let's go outside. Let's write this up. Or let's, and you're like, you're a new agent, you're like, I hope I know what blanks to fill in, right? But with technology, what's great is you get to go back and you get to say, well, tell you what to do. I'm going to go back to my office. I'm going to collect some information. I'm going to start writing up the paperwork. Let me get some information from you. Let's talk about, price and financing stuff. And you probably talked about some of that in the buyer consultation anyways, but you'll get information that you don't already have in terms of the offer, like where they want to go and say, okay, great. Well, let's start with that. I'll get some paperwork written up. Then we'll have a quick phone call, and I'll fill in a couple other blanks just based on information that I still need at that point. We'll get things really tightened up, and then I'll send it over to you to sign electronically.
Yep. Got it.
So.
Perfect.
And so you're preparing them for, even in a pretty short timeline, you're preparing them for a couple hours, really. You're saying, hey, we'll have this, we'll get this all out within a couple hours. And then you can take a breather, be like, okay, I don't have someone watching over my shoulder. I get the support I need, whatever, in order to make this work. So Yeah, that's technology speeds up everything. That's one thing that's slowed down, which but in a very good way. So we're not having to write an offer in front of our client. Also during the showing, and really this is more of kind of at the end of the showing, leave the property in the same condition as when you entered it. So for example, if you came in the property, all the lights were on, leave them on your way out. Don't turn off everything. Leave them on your way out if they were on when you came in. They may have had them all on for a reason, to brighten up the house, for example, right? So that may have been intentional. Make sure all the all the doors are locked and the house has been secured. So I do go do a walkthrough and my clients are walking out the front door. I'm like, hold on a second. And I walk out, I check windows and doors everywhere just to make sure that everything is secure. But one thing too is make sure, again, the doors are locked that were locked before. So if there's like an interior garage door and it was not locked when you showed up there, but the house would be otherwise secure because, the outside garage door, was closed, then don't lock that interior garage door. Some people don't have a key to that interior garage door, including me, right? And I've seen sellers get upset. They're like, they locked our interior garage door and we parked our car in the garage and we couldn't get in. And we had to like walk all the way around the other side of the house, right? So again, make sure it's secure, but don't lock doors that weren't locked if it doesn't, if it doesn't affect the security. And then make sure the keys are back in the key box after showing, obviously. So that's the last thing I do. And of course, I'm carrying the key around. So I didn't set it down anywhere. I got it in my hand. And so that I can make sure that it's properly locked. And then after it's properly locked, then I'm putting it in the key box. So, and then the last thing is confirm with the buyer whether they like the property enough to write up an offer. So that kind of ties in with that getting feedback as you go. Because it's a lot easier decision if you got feedback along the way and it's all thumbs up. Be sure you ask them at the end, because I see people that don't ask the buyer at the end, and then the buyer goes back and they think about it and they mull it over and they never make a decision. You need to ask them, do you like this enough to write up an offer? Right? And my recommendation is know how to write up an offer. Get to the point where you can practice a little bit. So Lena has her mock offer writing classes. In coaching, we go through that. We have videos for that. We train on that in coaching. If you're on a team, the teams will typically train on that as well. Know how to write up an offer long before you need to, because that may be the thing that stops you from asking for the decision. You're like, oh, I don't know what I need to do to write up an offer, so I won't ask them if they want to write up an offer because I'm afraid for them to say yes. Right? You don't want to be in that position. So.
And that's exactly why we've added the transaction desk class to the list of classes inside the welcome packet. Because if you do not know how to use that program and you get that call that they love the house, they're ready to go, what are you going to do? Especially if it's 10 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. Yeah, exactly. What are you going to do? How's that going to feel?
Yeah. Well, and don't think, oh, I don't have a buyer now, so I don't need to do this right away. You could go from no buyer today to a buyer tonight and writing up an offer tomorrow. It happens more than you think. So that's where you want to be prepared, because you don't want to be scrambling at the last minute to figure this all out. So. All right, well, that's all I had. Did anyone have any questions before I jump off? Okay.
Sounds like you did a great job then, David.
Awesome, thank you. One last thing that I didn't mention though, I just remembered, popped in my mind. As COVID restrictions get lifted, this is around showing and previewing, specifically previewing. As COVID restrictions get lifted, it is fine for a preview, not necessarily a showing, but for a preview to have the seller there. Yeah, I'm previewing your house. You don't have to leave. I tell them that. I'm fine meeting the seller, right? So because if I end up with a buyer that's going to write up an offer on that property, there'll be a little bit more familiarity, right? It's good. It's good to meet the seller. You want them out for a showing. You're fine with them there for a preview. So I've gotten a listing from an expired listing in the past because I previewed the house, and when I call them, said, "Remember me?" Because I met the seller. So
Love it.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm going to jump off here. I'll let Robin continue. Thank you guys for participating. Thanks for your questions and everything. I hope you got some value from that.
Yeah, David, you're amazing as always. Thank you so much for all of your knowledge and expertise.
All right, awesome. See you guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
All righty. So as you guys know, we are not done. So Janine is going to hop on Facebook Live here in just a couple minutes. So to kind of fill that space before she does get on, I wanted to kind of piggyback on something that David mentioned. So he was talking about the HomeSpotter app and the agent confidential remarks and being sure to read those. I want to mention not to take screenshots of properties in HomeSpotter and then post them on your social media. It's innocent enough, you know, you maybe want to show that you're out, you know, showing properties, you know, take a look at this $1 million house that I'm looking at, whether you're previewing it or showing it. However, we had someone a couple days ago posting the showing for the agent confidential remarks, and there were gate codes and, you know, the front door codes to condo buildings, and they're just out there on social media. I caught it like right after she posted it, because we're also social media police in a way. So she was able to take them down immediately. But who knows who saw that? And the address is there, the name of the seller is on there. So you just really want to be aware of what you're doing, what you're posting, and what information you're putting out there. Had the MLS had seen that, they could have fined her a ton of money or even taken away her MLS access for releasing confidential information. So with that, I also want to mention too, that if you do print off those MLS sheets, like if you're going to go showing and you print off all that information so you have it in paper versus on your phone, which is totally fine. That's also fine too. Just be aware of what you're doing with those when you're done with them. You don't want to just throw them in a public trash can. You do want to make sure you're throwing those away either at home, maybe even shredding them. Because again, there's addresses, phone numbers, names, and potential door codes to get into people's properties. And I just can't even imagine how that would feel if I left that information somewhere that someone could access and something terrible happened. So even though it's not our clients, it's not our client information, we do still have that higher responsibility to take care of other people's information as well. Let me see if she is on. Usually Janine is pretty prompt. If you guys are not part of our Facebook group, you should be. I'm dropping that link into the chat. So if you haven't already joined, you can request to join there. So every Friday at 10 a.m., Janine Wood, our designated broker, does a quick Facebook Live covering anything that she has seen happening this week in the industry. So she's not only our designated broker, she is the designated broker for Tacoma's Keller Williams office as well. And she oversees all of the designated brokers for all 8 of Ben Kinney's offices. So all of the craziness that's happening in the business or any of our offices, she knows it all. So we're in a really great spot to have her as our DB, because then she shares these cautionary tales with us so that we don't duplicate some of these things that she's seen happening. Okay, so she is live now. I'm going to share my screen.
Happy Facebook Friday. Hope that you are all doing well. Just wanted to cover a few things on our Facebook Live today. Number 1, please remember kindness goes a long way in our market. Our industry
Can you hear that?
is under a bunch of different turmoil, and to be kind to our fellow neighbors, to our fellow brokers, goes a long way when we're dealing with multiple offers. So please make sure that you are remembering that golden rule and that we check our egos at the door at all times. Number 2, please remember, I'm still seeing a lot of late earnest monies. Please make sure that if you have late earnest money, you as the listing broker tell your seller it's late. You as the buyer broker tell the listing broker that it is late. And that can be done in an email. And that email then can be uploaded to late earnest money placeholder in command. So please remember that. Or you can always do an addenda that says there's a deferred delivery or deposit of earnest money to X date and have everybody sign that, and that cures our problem. The DOL is after us full force, and we need to make sure that we are doing our due diligence. You saw my email go out, and it stated that we must supply everything to the firm. That includes any offer you receive on your listing must go into the firm. Please go ahead and just put that in custom folders, create an offer tab, and just throw them all in there. They can all go in there as a PDF. It's perfect. The DOL also states that we must supply all of our communication. That means texts, phone calls that are written on a piece of paper, phone logs, they say are supposed to be uploaded, emails as well, and anything that's written on a piece of paper. So if you are a buyer side and you're writing offer after offer after offer for a client, just create one opportunity under the client's name, because you haven't reached mutual yet, so you don't have an address to change the opportunity name, and create a custom folder, put all of the offers you've written for that particular client in custom folders, and you will be covered by the deal in terms of the DOL when you get, if you get investigated, because I know you won't, because I know that there's going to be no complaints, because you guys are doing your job fabulously. If you have any questions, please call me, text me. You're welcome to leave a chat down below. Highly likelihood that I won't get to it till later in the day. But I do always try to get back to you guys. If you need anything, I'm here. Take care. Bye.
So that was super quick, to the point. Janine does not like to waste time, so she usually just gets in and out. So I do definitely recommend you guys checking those out every Friday. So here in a few minutes, Lena, what was point number 1? Oh, so what she was getting at there is, and I know a lot of that probably didn't make any sense to you right now, because you guys haven't used some of these systems yet. But so point number 1 was how to treat other brokers when you're in a multiple offer situation, primarily when you're the listing agent. So in case you guys haven't heard, it's pretty common right now for one listing to get 10, 20, 30 offers in just a couple days. So then you're in a competitive situation with all of the other brokers. So if you are the listing agent, proper etiquette is to keep all 30 of those brokers informed as to what happened, if you accepted an offer, if they're not even going to counter your client's offer. Just having that clear communication with other brokers. This is a big industry. There are a lot of real estate agents out there, but at the same time, it's a very small industry. So if you guys get a listing, you get all of these offers, the way you treat other people will be remembered. And you might be the buyer's agent writing an offer on that listing agent's property. And they might just remember that you never communicated with them. You never let them know where they were at with their buyer. So as spiteful and immature as that might be, it's just that whole pay it forward. What goes around comes around. Take care of each other and communicate. So Lena Truhoft, our office team leader, she's going to be hopping on in about 5 minutes, and she's going to walk through how to put together an offer in Transaction Desk. So this will help you guys see what forms you might use, how to get those added in. It's not necessarily a class on Transaction Desk. You're still going to want to take that class in the MLS, but she's going to give you some guidance on that. So if you guys want to take a break for a few minutes, you're totally okay to do that. We are going to get going again right at 10:10. And then after Lena speaks, we are going to take a full 10-minute break. So you guys can do whatever you've got to do, and then come back with Dave P. to talk about paths to production and how to move forward in your businesses. So go ahead, take a few minutes, and then we will start again right at 10:10. I told everybody they could have a couple minutes and we'll get started right at 10:10.
Sorry, I did respond to you, but I was muted.
Oh, I was muted too. I said I read your lips.
Okay. I'm actually gonna just go fill this with water really quick. I'll be right back.
All right, guys, we're gonna get started here in about a minute. As usual, please have your cameras on if you can.
Are you waiting on me to start now?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to pour. Have you ever tried to pour protein powder into like the smallest water?
Take like a piece of paper and roll it into a little funnel.
Oh my gosh! I'm literally doing it.
Makes it so much easier.
See, you are so smart. If you, I'm like,
All right, guys. Lena's just wrapping up and we're going to get started with how to write a purchase and sale agreement. Take notes. You'll definitely appreciate that you have them later when you do sit down to write an offer.
and if you can have your MLS open transaction desk, that helps even more.
Well, there you go.
And it worked, Robin. Look at that. Oh my god.
Yay.
I only made a little bit of a mess.
I was wondering if you were going to pour the powder just directly on the desk because it was your first time doing the little funnel.
There is some, Sean. Stuff on my desk.
I figured that could happen.
But the majority of it did get inside. So
Okay.
we're good. We are good. Okay. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. And open the MLS. So I'm going to walk you guys through, I'm going to walk you guys through drafting up an offer. Now, I'm not going to go over like negotiation tactics, because totally depends on what deal you're writing, who your buyers are, and Janine teaches that in her contracts classes and all of that stuff. So that would be much better for you to attend to hear her side of things on that. But I am going to show you where everything is so that you are familiar with where to go and what standard forms you will put with an offer. Cool? And this is totally open forum. You guys can just talk at any time. You don't need to wait or raise your hand or anything like that. Just interrupt me. I have 2 kids. I'm totally used to it. We're good to go. Okay, so we're going to pretend that you just toured some people and they love this house and they're ready to write an offer and you are ready to submit it. So this is what you're going to do. The best way is, instead of going into transaction desk first, right here, you guys can see my screen, right? Okay, so you can just go to transaction desk and start it from there. I like to take the the easiest route in anything to save time. So I want to look up the property first. So let's actually just look at the last property I was looking at, which was one yesterday. And oh my gosh, I went and looked at this last night. It is so cute. Anyways, that's just a side note. A little cute house in downtown Snohomish. So we're going to pretend, actually, let's pick a different one, because if I do want to write an offer on this house, I don't want it to be one that we already wrote. I did that once before and it was kind of a pain. So, we're going to go to this one, $1.3 million instead. Okay.
Question about that.
Yeah.
I was doing that because I was practicing and I went to do it again and it like recognized the house. You couldn't like redo, do another one?
So you
Is
can.
it like intuitive?
No, you can. You just have to go into transaction desk instead and manually enter it. So I actually did that. The last time I taught this class, I pulled up the last house I looked at and it happened to be one that I ended up writing an offer on like later that night. And I was like, oh my God, it's all my information from the class. I had to change everything. And it's just scary in case you miss something and it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just tried this yesterday and it was like, I was like, why is it opening? And it keeps opening in that one. And
you just have to go into transaction desk and start a new transaction, but it still may pull some of the information. You just have to re-put it in there.
I just picked a different house. I was like, I'll start over. I'm fine.
or that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna pick this house, which I looked at this one. It's absolutely beautiful. That's just a side note. But so if you have the MLS open to the house that you're going to write an offer on, I always want to look at the supplements first because I want to see what they already have uploaded. And that comes into play when you're adding the forms later. So we're just going to glance at the supplements. Okay, so they have the septic inspection report. They have the Form 17 in here, which is the seller disclosure. And that's it. So what I'm specifically looking for is that they do not have the utility addendum. They don't have lead-based paint. It was probably built after the year for lead-based paint, so that's fine. But you're really looking for the utility, lead-based paint, and Form 17 because you want to know if they're in here already. So now from here, we are going to go to this little scroll pen right there thingy icon. That is going to take you to transaction desk, but since you are clicking on it from this property, it will auto import the details of the property. That's important for a couple of reasons. One, it means that you can't mess up if you go to write the information yourself, right? It is auto-populating it, so it's going to pull in whatever the listing agent has in here. Second, it saves you time so that you don't have to do it yourself. So we're going to click on that.
Lena, what was the third thing? You said utilities, lead-based paint, and was it seller disclosure was the other one? What was the third? Okay.
Yep, Form 17, seller disclosure.
And utilities, 22K, is
Yep.
that correct?
And lead-based paint is 22J.
Thank you.
And those are usually uploaded if the agent is on it. Am I breaking up a little bit, Robin?
You sound
No?
good to me.
Okay. I feel like my I can see my face and it's like not moving the same way as my lips as I'm talking. Anyways, okay, so here it has the information, right? Already in there, so I don't have to do anything. You're adding me as the selling broker because I'm representing the buyer, which in the terms of here are selling broker, even though they did just change it on the purchase and sale agreement to buyer broker. But as of right now, still it says selling broker in transaction. So we're going to go to create.
Do you always just leave the name like that? I know it has the address that pops up, but do you just typically leave it like that?
No, I'll get to that. So I always do. So when you send it for signing, you can create a name and you can change the name in transaction desk. I always do the address and the last name. The reason I do both is because, well, for the example of when I did this class last time, I had the address in there and then I wrote an offer for myself. So the address would have been in there twice, but because I used the last name, you can differentiate it. Then also because let's say that when you're turning it into the other side, you want them to be able to also know which one is yours, right? If they all just say the address, they're going to be like, whose is whose? So I want them to know that it's the address and for, Truhoft, whatever. That's my last name, so easy. But so I always do it. And if you're writing 15 offers for your client, you don't want them all just to say the last name. So I do the address and last name.
And it's client's last name, right? You're talking about?
Yeah. I just used mine because it was the first one I thought of. Okay, so details already is going to be filled out with the information that you need, right? Because we clicked on it from the MLS. If you had gone to transaction desk, this would all be blank. So you'd be having to fill it all out. Okay. So here's all of this. You can put the purchase price in here that you're going to offer, and that'll put it on the offer as well. So what is this listed at? 1.295. So we'll just say we're going in at 1.3, even though that probably wouldn't get it in this market, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Okay, so that's right. All right, so next. So you're going through the steps of this. So purchase and sale agreement date. We're going to put today's date because I know that I'm going to send it to my clients right now. They're going to sign it and we're going to submit it. Offer expiration. Again, I'm not going to go into the logistics of you could negotiate and have it expire tonight at 9 p.m. and really put the push on them. Otherwise, we're going to go with tomorrow and it is automatic that it's 9 p.m. Closing date. We're just going to pretend that we're doing 2 weeks because our lender's so great. And possession is on closing. A lot of times right now, you're going to see that there is, they're requesting a rent back, the sellers. So then you would just change the possession date to kind of whatever they're looking for or whatever your buyers, agree to do with them. Again, that's more like the negotiation side of things. It's going to auto pull the listing information, the seller information. It is not going to pull, obviously, your buyer's information because it does not know what buyer you're writing this for. So from here, I would recommend adding the contacts of your buyer so that they're in here for the rest of the transaction. Otherwise, you're going to be manually entering their email every time. So we're going to add our buyer right now, create new transaction contact. And I always recommend doing this either right now along with me on your own computer. If you're anything like me, I have to manually do stuff myself. I could watch somebody all day and then go to do it later and be like, oh, wait, what? Where'd they go? Where was that button? What? So I like going through it myself. And if you're not at a computer right now that you can't do it, just try to do something later, do an offer later. Just don't submit it to anybody, right? But you can walk through doing it yourself multiple times. I highly suggest doing it at least once, because if you want to write an offer next week and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I've never written one, you're going to be scrambling and it's going to be like panic mode. And I get really bad anxiety. So I would definitely want to go through it. Okay. So first name, we're just going to say Lena. Last name, Truhoft. well, maybe we shouldn't because it has me as the selling broker. We're gonna say Robin Hooper, and we're gonna say hooper@test.com. And so we're gonna put Robin in as my buyer. Okay, save. So now it has Robin in as my buyer. It already has my selling firm and everybody else's information. So from there, we go to next. So forms are blank, you see. So from here, you can add the forms that you're going to need. Now, I'm just going to kind of show you the basic ones. You may want to be using other ones depending on what you're negotiating. Like you may need the 22 AD for additional down payment. We're not going to go into all of that. I'm just going to show you the basic ones. So we're going to go over your standard purchase and sale agreement. Oops. Here we go. And then when you click the button, it just automatically adds it to this basket right here. Okay. You don't need to add or hit add yet, just add all the forms first. So we're going to go 22. A would be your financing if you were financing. AA is the new appraisal addendum. AD is that increased down payment one I was talking about. You're always going to want to do the optional clauses. So we'll go over that one. I'll show you the FERPTA. FERPTA, though, is not going to be part of the addendum drop down. I'll show you that on the form 21. But you do need to make sure that escrow has that within 10 days of closing. Even if you're on the buy side, you just want to check and confirm with escrow that the listing side gave that as well. Okay, so that's that. This one said that it was on septic. So you're going to want to make sure that you do a septic form and then title. So 22S is septic.
Now, Lena, all of these you would have known were not in their supplement. That's why you're selecting them here, correct?
Yeah, so none of these are ever in supplements.
Okay,
These are just what you're going to include in an offer every time.
got it.
Because they did not have the utility one, we are going to add that.
Right.
But had they had that's why I always check the supplements first. If they had the utility one in there, we would not click it on here.
Right, and that would be in a different location in the document.
Right.
Be in the document.
Yes. Well, it would have been in their supplements, but yeah, you're right. When you do the form, it would be in their document section.
Okay, I have a question when you get to that part.
Okay, so we're gonna add the utility one. Okay, so from there, I'll show you the inspection form. So if you were waiving inspection, then you would add the 35W. If you had done a pre-inspection, they probably would have had this 35P on the supplements because you have to turn that in before you do a pre-inspection. Again, this is all kind of like contract related stuff, but since I'm here, I'm just pointing it out to you. So we're going to add those. So now that I have everything in my basket here, I'm going to click add. If I forgot something, I will be able to add it later and I'll show you. But right now I'm just adding it all. And because I'm adding it all and we opened this from the MLS page of the property, it's going to pull all the information to these forms as well. So you'll see all that. So here's
now, Lena, once you add all the forms, you've missed one, can it be updated after the offer submitted, or is it only once you're done with the transaction desk?
So I'll show you where you can add it later. After you submit the offer, though, is kind of a tricky question and it depends on the form. So let's say that you submitted your offer and you forgot the inspection form, like you kind of just screwed your clients over, not to scare you, but if you submitted the offer and they accepted it and you did not put in an inspection contingency, you just lost the chance to do an inspection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's why also when you're new, you definitely want somebody helping you or reviewing your offer before you submit it. Okay. So we click on next. Here's the document. So this is what they have uploaded. These are their supplements. We click done. And now we're ready to go. So here is the transaction dashboard. Here's the property right here, the address information, my buyer. Here's all the forms that I just uploaded. If I'm like, oh crap, I didn't upload the 22J for the lead-based paint, I could just click this little arrow and add it from here. Even if after I go start filling them all out, I can just come back to this little home screen and I can add more forms here. So I like to start with the Form 21 because that's the main overview of the purchase and sale agreement. So you click on it. You can really click on any of them first. I just like to go in order. So here's the Form 21. Now from here, you click this little guy, transaction forms, and that's how you're going to toggle now between all the other ones to fill out. Okay. You can also just click this little house right here on the left and go back home to that transaction page. But while you're here, if you just click on this, you're going to go back and forth to these forms. So we're going to go through this now. So it automatically has the date of today because that's what we put, remember, on that page. It already pulled in all of this information, which is great because I don't want to retype it all. So offer expiration date 5/22. Now let's say we were doing some sort of negotiation tactic that we did not want it to be 9 p.m. tomorrow. We would just write the date right here. Right? So now they know that it's 12 noon tomorrow. So my buyer is Robin Hooper. Status, you want to put the status right here. Status, we're putting her as an unmarried person. If you don't put anything right here, that's fine, but just know that title is going to come back. They're going to ask you, you're going to have to let them know. It just saves a step later if you put it right here. And if you have two people right here, make sure you know and you're not assuming if they're married or not married.
Also, hashtag goals 1.3 million as a single person.
I mean, Robin Hooper's doing real well. Okay, so you want to put the status. So all of this legal description is in. Included items, this is very big, okay? I always tell everybody to learn from my mistake from the first offer I ever did and only check the boxes here for things that are listed on the MLS. If you check washer and dryer and that is not listed as included items on the MLS, guess who's buying him a washer and dryer? You are, okay? So on the MLS right here, not that one. On the not that one. On the where is the page? Where is the page we were looking at? Okay, here it is. Clearly I'm looking at a lot of properties. Okay. Right here, here's our MLS page again, okay? If you scroll down, you are going to look right here and it says dishwasher, dryer, garbage disposal, microwave, range oven, refrigerator, washer. If it doesn't say it on here, don't check the boxes on the other thing. Okay?
Hey, Lena, do the site features sometimes count too? Like,
so if it says like hot tub, yeah, you don't need to do cable TV, high-speed internet. That's going to be at a later part in it. But if it says like hot tub is a big one, then you check the box for hot tub. But then also make sure if you saw a hot tub on the property and it's not listed right here, don't check the box on the offer. And if you want to clarify with the listing agent, do that to make sure and get it in writing, not on the phone.
And so I saw one, it was like a sport court or some kind of like, so you don't have to list that. It was in the site features. You don't have to list that or sprinkler system.
No, sprinklers will be somewhere else. And sport court, I feel like if it's a cemented in one that I'm thinking about,
yeah,
property.
Okay.
No, but if it's something that could be taken out, like a hot tub or
Mhm.
like, let's say like an outdoor grill,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Okay. So now we go back. Now you've learned your lesson and you're only checking the boxes that they said on there, right? So stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer, dishwasher, microwave. I toured, I showed a place a couple weeks ago and we wrote an offer, did not have a microwave, but I looked on here and I went to check it because I always check the box for microwave and I was like, I didn't say it on there. And I went back and looked at the pictures, no microwave. So just be sure that you are knowing what you're checking and why. Okay. Purchase price already pulled in. Earnest money. Again, I'm not going to go into like negotiation strategies because there's so many, especially with a house of this price. But let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that we are doing, Robin's doing $25,000 earnest money. Okay. Check. Delivery date. Now it used to always be 2 days. Now it's whatever you want. We could say 1 day to make our offer look a little bit better. And the check is being held by closing agent. You are never going to check the box for buyer brokerage firm because our firm does not have a holding account. We do not hold those checks for you. That check from your buyer for that earnest money is going to escrow. Okay. Default, you want to check the box forfeiture of earnest money. Janine goes over this in her classes. You will not select seller's election of remedies because you do not want the seller to decide that they could come after more than the earnest money. Now for title, always look on, because it's a listing, the listing side generally opens title first. They've already picked a place that is open title. So you want to look on here and it always says in broker remarks, see title and escrow directed by or to Amy Womack at CW Title and Escrow. Okay. And you obviously want to have read this before. So like this says Echo Ridge HOA on title for this 3 parcel development has been dissolved, no longer in effect. So there's no HOA. Okay. Good to know. So title and escrow, Amy Womack, CW Title. So we're going to put CW Title and Escrow. Legally, you as the buyer can pick the closing agent. I don't, because I go with who they want, because in this market, I want to do whatever I can to make them happy. You can do whatever you want.
The
If
closing
title isn't-
agent. Oh, sorry, go.
Oh, no, if title isn't listed, do you leave it blank or will it always be listed?
So it usually is always listed on there. If they don't have it listed, I just shoot them a text. Do you have title open? Who are you using? And they may say titles with blah, 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 but you can pick whoever for escrow. Oh, great. I'll use my BKCO title and escrow for escrow. Okay. So individual, you don't have to have a name there. Sometimes they don't have a name listed. That's fine, but you will want to find out because as the buyer, you're going to have to open escrow. You want to know if they have an agent that they're using.
This is what I was going to ask you. You would say rule of thumb is if the person's name is there to put it, even though it's optional.
Oh yeah.
And that's the closing agent is regarding escrow,
Yes.
not title, correct? Okay.
Right. If it's the same company, I rarely see 2 different companies. I actually did just see it the other day and it caught me off guard. It's usually the same company that does both, like CW Title and Escrow. So it's just kind of all one group that you're talking to for both. Okay, so closing date 6/4/21. We're doing possession on closing. Again, maybe if it's different, you just make sure you click other and what the date is. And a 65B is the form that you need if you're doing a rent back, if they're doing possession on a date other than closing. But you do not put that with the offer. The 65B you give on closing. And Janine can explain the legal reasons for that. But just know that the 65B is the rental agreement between your buyer as the new landlord and the seller as the new tenant. after closing. Does that make sense? Okay, so service of closing agent for payment of utilities, you're going to do requested. That's the 22K. That's what lists out the utilities. And that goes to escrow to make sure that they know that the seller has paid off all of the utilities prior to closing. They take care of that out of like the closing, all the monies at the end. Charges and assessments. You again could do different things with this for negotiation tactics, but you generally want to do prepaid in full by seller, especially for a condo. They could have big assessments coming up as part of the HOA. I wrote an offer one time, and this like sticks with me and scares me to death now of HOAs. But they, after I dug into it a little bit, there was an assessment coming up on the unit of like $75,000. And it was not like a payment plan thing. It was paid in full. That was going to be owed. That's a lot of money when you're looking at a $300,000 condo, you know? So I always check.
Well, Robin's single and buying like a $1.3 million home. So I think
she can afford it.
She's good to go.
Yeah, exactly. You know, for a house that doesn't have an HOA, there still could be an assessment. So there could be a sewer capacity charge if it's a newer construction. And that's usually like an $8,000, you know, around there type of thing. There could also be, the city could be adding sidewalks. You know what I mean? So there is stuff for a single family home as well. Seller FERPTA, that is the form that I was talking about that is no longer on this drop down right here, or it's not. Yeah, they took it off. So that is not considered an addenda to put on the drop down, and that is a form that the listing side would fill out, and it really is for the taxation purposes of the seller, so that if they are not a U.S. resident, that they still pay taxes on the property. So you just want to make sure that escrow has it. Or
when they don't, like, so when some of them don't have it in the supplements, right?
Yeah,
and
most
now,
don't now.
Okay, so what do you check in 14? Do you have to go find out?
So nope, I leave it blank.
Okay.
I leave it blank, and then when you submit the offer, if they send it back to you all signed around and they leave it, like I literally just had this happen this last week. If they send it back to you and it's not filled out, they signed it, you went mutual, but that line item is not filled out, that's fine. Escrow just needs that form within 10 days before closing. So what we just did, we had a deal closed on Wednesday. We just had everybody initial that first page once escrow had that form. They just checked the box, is not a foreign person. Janine actually said that wasn't even required. We just did it for our own records, just to have it signed and initialed for everybody's peace of mind. So you don't need to check that line item. You do want to make sure though that escrow has that form within 10 days of closing.
And that's up to the responsibility of the buyer's agent?
It actually is the listing agent that needs to submit that, but you as the buyer want to do all of your due diligence. And so I do have it on my checklist for the buyer's agent to make sure, only because you don't want anything. Let's say that you don't check it, and let's say that 5 days before closing, the other side's like, oh, we didn't do it. And escrow's like, oh, I don't have it. Now closing gets pushed out. Not to your fault, right?
But could have been avoided.
You could have found out earlier, and maybe the other side just forgot, because there could be an agent on the other side that's never done a listing. You know what I mean? So just add it to your checklist to check, or your TC, whatever, because you just want to make sure that you're doing everything you can for your client to make sure that you're going to close on time. And plus, you want to close on time, right?
Yep. Now you said checklist or TC. TC.
If you have a transaction coordinator.
Got it.
So if you have a transaction coordinator, they can have it on their checklist. Or if you're not using one, then you just check with escrow to make sure. Okay, so so I leave that blank. And then agency, buyer represented by buyer broker. See, this is where I was saying that they changed selling broker to say buyer broker. Remember in the beginning? So now it says buyer broker, seller represented by listing broker. Now the addenda, I am very OCD about this because this is how I learned it in the very beginning. This should all be in order. I can't tell you how many agents I see that have been in the business for 10 years that still send me something that don't have this in order, and it drives me insane. What I mean by order is alphanumeric order, like 22A. And then the next one that we did was 22D. And then and plus this helps you too when you're looking at this. This is where I remember, this is where I see if I forgot a form. I just start scrolling down. Okay, 22D. I could get here and be like, oh shoot, I forgot the 22J. You know what I mean? So 22.
Question, we didn't add this, but the 22 AD, if we use it, right?
Yeah.
Does another form need to be accompanied with that? Because you have other forms that talk about low appraisals, but the 22 AD is basically saying you will pay that variance up to X amount. Do you need to use any of the other forms
Yes.
that speak to the low appraisal? And if so, which? Is it the AN?
Okay, so
22A?
I'm not going to answer this one in detail because I still ask Janine about these like new financing forms because I'm so paranoid about filling them out incorrectly because they are all new as of the last couple months. She taught a class specifically just on the forms. I actually did take it. I need to take it again because I like to know for a fact why I'm saying and doing and checking off what boxes. So yes, for the 22 AD, you do need other forms. Same thing with the 22 AA and that new appraisal form. So I would definitely know that if you're doing those forms to double check with her, because I still do.
Yeah.
Actually, now I revert back to like my screenshots I took of like the previous questions that I asked her. And watch that video that she talked about these brand new forms. She goes into the financing ones. And if you want, I can try to find it and send it to you because I should watch it again too. But yes, good question. There are multiple forms and those also I like in order. Okay, so 22K. And then we did I add septic? I think I added septic. And then 22T. And again, you know, maybe you're waiving title or maybe you're waiving septic. So you may not include all of these, but I'm just doing it just to show you generally how you're doing it. And then we added the inspection. Okay, let's say later on I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna add the 22 AD. I would literally reopen this form that I've already typed out and saved, and I would shift all of these over so that I could add the 22 AD so that they're in order, because I am all about making the cleanest, most prettiest offer that I can. And I can't tell you how annoying it is to get an offer that these are all out of order. And then you're like, okay, does it have, like, then you're looking through the forms and you're like, does it have an inspection? Oh wait, this one's in the first page. Oh wait, where's the financing form? And then you're like looking everywhere for them. Just put them in order. It's like the best thing that I learned when I started. Okay, so here's all the forms. Everything is set. Okay. So there's nothing else on this form. So we just go up here, click save, save. So now that one is saved with all the information we did. Now we click this to go to the next form. We're going to go to optional clauses. And I'm going to have to try to like run through this really fast. Robin, what time do we have till? 11?
11.
Okay. All right. So optional clauses, always check this one, saying that you are not promising, you're just going off what the MLS says. You're not making, you're not saying that you measured the place, right? Title insurance, I don't check either one of these. The one that it automatically comes with is better than standard, and you don't need extended. And the only time you need extended is when you're doing vacant land. Okay. So I leave that blank. Seller cleaning, yes, duh, always. Even if you think it's a new construction, check seller cleaning, because it could 2 days before closing, a homeless person could go in there and mess up the place, or like one of our agents had a condo in Seattle, and literally like the day before closing, a bunch of people went in there and did drugs and left stuff all over the place. Like, you want to check the box for cellar cleaning, okay? Personal property, you want to check this box because you want them to take all their stuff. Otherwise, you're responsible for it. Utilities, again, check the MLS page, but connected to public water main. This one was septic, so we checked septic, not sewer, right? It said it had cable, internet. We're gonna go with gas, telephone, okay? Insulation, this was not new construction, so we're not checking that box. Leased property, like my house when I bought it had a propane tank, so we would check this, right? You want to do, if there's a security system, 80, what is it, ADT, ADP, something like that, security, you would check this if it had the system and it said that it was giving it to you and you're taking over that lease of the property, right? Homeowners Association review, it did not have one, so we are not checking this box. If it does have one, it has the days next to it that's automatic. I would change that. I always change it to like 3 days to review it. Again, you can do whatever you want, what you discuss with your buyer, and always talk to your buyer first. Don't just change the dates without them understanding what you're changing it to. But we're going to leave that blank because there was no HOA. Homeowner Association transfer fee. This would be if there was an HOA, the complex usually charges a couple $100 to change it and put it in the new person's name. Home warranty, if it said on the front MLS page, like home warranty included, you could check this box and you could put per MLS, paid by seller, or I'll buy mine, you know, selling agent to purchase home warranty through America's Preferred Home Warranty. That's what I always put because I buy them that for a closing gift. We go to save.
What form was that one again that you just
This is
went to?
22D. So these are all the optional
22D.
clauses. Yeah.
Got it.
So that's the last one there. Let me go to transaction forms and I'm going to show you the FERPTA. You do not need to include this. I just added it to show you. This is what it would look like. And this is what would be in the supplements or the one that you want to make sure that they send to escrow. The buyer does not sign this. Okay. You guys, your buyer does not need to sign this. The seller fills it out and they're going to put that they're the seller at this property and they're going to put their citizenship status. Okay. And then they sign it. Your buyer, again, I'm telling you, does not sign this. There's check boxes for the buyer and places for the buyer to sign, and they do not need to. They don't need to do anything. Okay. I just pulled this up to show you. Septic. So this house was on septic. So you always want to check that on the MLS to see if it's on septic or sewer. If it's on sewer, that may be included in your inspection, which I'll get to on that page. Septic, just so you guys know, if it has not been pumped or inspected within 12 months of listing, that they need to do it. If it's over 12 months, if it's been over 12 months that they had done it, then the seller has to do it. If they had it pumped and inspected 9 months ago, when I bought my house, they had it pumped like 11.5 months prior. So they did not have to do it. So I did it again for my own peace of mind because maybe something happened in the last 12 months, right? You could also waive it. A lot of places that have septic right now in their listings, did you see on the supplements? Remember it said a septic addendum was on there, or maybe it said inspection. So they probably already did it, and that means you could waive it because it was done. But you just want to make sure that, again, you know why you're doing what, right? So you could just not include this form and you're waiving the opportunity to do a septic inspection because they already did it, or because you guys are just like, oh, I don't care, we're taking our chances, whatever. Okay. I definitely recommend for a septic though, getting it inspected and pumped if the seller has not done it, because who knows what could be wrong with that. And that would be a gross mistake if something happened. Just saying. So we are going to go to the next form, title contingency. Again, there are things that you can do with this right now that we're seeing left and right because of the market. You could review it ahead of your offer and know that you guys want to waive it, but definitely you want to make sure that you're not just waiving it without having them see the title report. A lot of listings are including the preliminary title report and they're putting it on the supplement. So you just want to check there and again, know why you're doing what. Otherwise, you would include this title contingency form, the 22T, and you would put buyer shall have, it's automatic 5 days, and you can either check the box from the date of the receipt of preliminary commitment or 5 days from mutual acceptance. You want to do from the date of preliminary commitment that you receive it. If you do mutual acceptance and they don't give it to you for 4 days, now you've just limited yourself to 1 day to review it, right? So you want to do this one from the date that you actually receive it. That's the only thing you fill out there. Save. Here's the utility form just to show you. If they have it uploaded in the supplements, generally they'll have their seller already fill it out. If they don't have it filled out on there and you attach it, there's nothing that you're filling out. It's just all of this information on here and you are just adding it to the offer basically for them to fill it out and get it back to you within the 5 days or send to escrow within the 5 days, okay? I will tell you though, you want to pay attention. So another deal that I just did for the listing side, there was no garbage company because the garbage company wouldn't go up like the hill to this place, okay? So you just want to make sure that if you see and it says, let's say NA, that you understand like why it says that, you know, because you don't want to get to closing and be like, oh shoot, for your buyer, like, oh no, sorry, there's no garbage. And then they're like, well, what are we supposed to do, right? So you just want to be aware, pay attention to it. If they didn't put a water district information on it, why? Is there no water? Like you need to know this stuff, okay? So this is due back to you within 5 days if they didn't fill it out. Okay, inspection. So again, if you're doing an inspection, then you would include this form. You don't have to check this because if you don't, it may include a sewer inspection, which I recommend, especially if it's in like the city. There's a lot of tree roots that gets into the sewer system. That's a huge cost if there's an issue. If there's roots in it, it could be, you're looking at $5,000-$10,000 to have that sewer fixed. So just do a sewer scope, get it as part of your inspection. If it's a sewer, obviously septic, this is not part of it. So the inspection contingency, I always change. It's automatic for 10 days. I'll change it to make it to make your offer look better. Obviously in this market, it's crazy. There's going to be other things you maybe want to do, but if you do an inspection, I recommend reducing it from 10 days. Yeah. And remember 5 days. So today's Friday. If we went mutual today, the weekend doesn't count. So you really have more than 5 days. You know, same thing if it's a Wednesday, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday don't count. And then it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you really have a while, right? If it's 10 days, that does include the weekends. 5 does not. Okay, so here's all of this. I don't change any of these dates. Again, you can if you want to. This is for if you come back to ask for repairs, how much time they have, how much time you have to respond to each other. I think they're all 3 days. I don't change them though. I do not check the box for neighborhood review contingency. I feel like my buyers should already know if they want to live there or not. And that's an escape for the offer for your buyers to back out. That doesn't look good to the listing agent. So I don't ever do a neighborhood review contingency. I would just advise my buyers, like, do you know you want to live here? Is this where you want to live? Great. You want to make your offer as strong as possible, right? You want to remove as many contingencies as feasible that your buyers agree to, but you know, the better your chances of keeping the deal accepted and together. Okay. I think that was the last one. So now what we do, we're pretending that all of our forms are filled out beautifully. It is ready to go. It looks so good. Sean, this is where we're going to go to the signing that we're going to name it. So we can go back home. So here's all of our transactions. Here's the one we're working on. Here's this. So now you can look over here to the right and you could do signings and you could see, obviously we've done no signing. We can do add and I'm going to do the name. So we're going to name this one, whatever the add 14604, and we're just going to go Hooper. Okay, save. Now from here, participants, oh, look at Robin Hooper's in here because we added her to the contacts before. Okay, we're gonna add her in. Documents, and I'm sorry, I'm going kind of fast because we have 2 minutes. So from here, all of the forms that you filled out and all the documents that they had in the supplements are here. So
can you go back one? How do you, what you just hit add document? Is that what you hit?
Yeah.
That already popped up.
Yep. So you click add documents and it did the first time. If you go back again, this is where you could upload a file now from your computer if you wanted to, but we just want to go for this transaction.
Yeah, and that has what we added and what they had in those two sections. That's what I was.
So if they had those extra supplements, this is where they would be that you could add them to the signing. So we're going to do all of the forms that, well, we're not going to do that one. We're just going to pretend that we're clicking all the right ones. Okay. So we're going to do all of these. We do not do the seller disclosure, that form 17, in this signing. We do the offer. And again, this is a mistake that I see that drives me nuts. You want all of the forms and addendums in this one offer together as one PDF. You do have to have your buyers sign the seller disclosure. It doesn't have to be at the time of offer. It should be, but if the seller didn't provide it, you have the couple day leeway. Anyways, pretending that they have it ready and you're going to submit it with your offer, it should be a separate PDF. So I'm not going to check the box for that right now. I'm going to do all of this and I'm going to add the legal description because that should go with it. Okay. And then I'm going to do a separate signing for that form 17. Does that make sense? So the attachments in my offer letter are going to be my beautiful offer email, and it's going to have a PDF of the seller disclosure signed, a PDF of the rest of the entire offer signed in alphanumeric order. And then, does anybody know the third thing? Pre-approval letter. And I want the pre-approval letter to match what the price is. If Robin was approved for $3 million and we're submitting an offer for 1.5, or even if let's say she was approved for 1.6 and we were submitting for 1.4, I don't want that to say 1.6 because I don't want the listing agent to be like, well, Robin's approved for 1.6 and you guys are, okay, no. It says 1.4 and I will make my lender send me a new one for every single offer to match the price that we're going in at. And if it's an escalation, if we put an escalation clause, which we didn't talk about, but if we put an escalation clause, $200,000 higher, I'm still not putting that in there because I don't need them to know, oh, well, they put an escalation up to there and the pre-approval says it. And well, let's just go to 1.6. I have it at 1.4. Janine may say different. I don't know. She's smarter than me. So whatever she says, go by what she says. But does that make sense? So here's all these pretty things. If I needed to add a document later and it showed up at the bottom, but it was really a 22 AD, where am I moving it?
In order.
Yes, to the top.
In alphanumeric order.
Gold star. Yes. I would move it up so it's in order. Like this 22K.
You just drag it. You just drag it from the left.
Yep.
Or...
The day that they changed this in Transaction Desk, I like freaking cried of joy, you guys, because it did not used to be like this and you had to like re-upload everything and move. It was awful. They literally changed it like in the last year and I was like, oh my God. Amazing. So now you just boop.
Was that
just
the
like that.
OCD update? Boop. Is that what they called it? The OCD update.
Yeah, they're
please?
probably like, this girl Lena keeps teaching class and yelling at everybody about putting them in order. So now they're all here, and then you go to design, and this is the last thing I'll say because I know we have to wrap up, Robin, I'm sorry. In design, right now, this will automatically put all the signatures in place, except for this damn expiration date sometimes doesn't do it, and same thing with closing. That is so annoying. So you would type it in here, first of all. Here's the markup tool. Just click text, put it in, whatever, 522 to whatever it was. I'm going really fast, otherwise I'd make that look better. But the only time that you're going to add a signature is if they uploaded it into their, so let's say they had that 22K in the supplements and we added it from the documents. It does not, the system doesn't have it set up right now where it automatically puts the signatures on there. So right now, if you look, it automatically has it right here. It automatically has it on every page. But if we had pulled in, let's say the 22K, wherever it is, let's just pretend that this is it. This would not be right here.
So it's their documents. So the ones from all the documents from supplements, you got to put that, you got to
Yep.
put the date.
So I would do this drop down to whatever the person's name, and I would do drag and drop initial, and I would add her initial. Right click, oops. Right click, date stamp. So I just, during this last design thing, I scroll through and I literally reread everything to make sure everything is correct. There's a signature block on every page. There's on the supplements that they upload, they also don't have the date at the top and your buyer's name. So you're going to have to make sure everything states everything correctly. Make sense? And then you click next, and we're not going to do it because it would go to hooper@test.com, but then it would send for signing. And then it would go to your email and tell you when they open it and tell you when they sign it and let you just save it as a PDF, and you can just drop it into your email ready to go. And there is a video recording of me teaching this that is not as fast at the end because we're running out of time, but you do have that if you wanted to watch it again. And you have to listen to my voice all over again for another hour.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
That's
Lena.
Sorry for going a little bit over.
Oh, you're good. Any questions? Did everybody ask their questions?
You guys can email me too if you have questions, or pop by the office.
Put our email in the chat so you guys have that. All right, so we have about 6 minutes. Go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come back right at 11:10 with Dave Piedrahita.
Thanks, bye.
We've got Dave Piedrahita on here, or most of us just call him Dave P.
Good morning.
Where is your last name from? I've never asked you that.
Colombia, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
South America.
Very cool. I was not going to guess that. So when Dave first hopped on, he had mentioned that some of you are either already in coaching or you have been to the paths to production already. So if that's you, you can take a long lunch. Like Sean Brown, I know you're on Team Builder. I'm very happy there. So you kind of know who you are. Dave knows who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, this will be a repeat for you guys that have gone through. I know Anuncio, you have Melissa, Frederick. So you guys can take a long lunch because this is just going to be a repeat of what you sat through before, going through the path to production. So just letting you know.
All right, and then if you guys are sticking around, please have your cameras on as usual. After this, we'll take a half-hour lunch break so we can get some, some snacks, some lunch, do what you got to do. And Dave, I will let you take over.
All righty. Good morning, everybody. I hope the morning's going well. You're getting lots of good info. I think you just went over how to write an offer with Lena. That's great. what we're here for this hour, 45 minutes, is to just kind of talk about different paths available to you getting into this business. You know, one of the great things about real estate is the numerous numbers of different avenues that one can take. And you know, it's not, you know, everyone's path is a different one. And so, you know, I think one of the biggest challenges starting out is trying to figure out what road is best for you. So, you know, hopefully with, you know, some of the info today gives you a little bit, you know, more insight into, you know, what things look like for you guys getting started and what might be the best route for you as well. So we'll talk about, you know, kind of the four main paths and some of the pros and cons, and you know, go from there. So hopefully, you know, I've always believed that the best decision is the most well-informed decision. So hopefully we can give you a little bit more info to make an informed decision on how you want to get this business started for yourself. Before I share my screen and get the slide deck rolling, a little bit about me. You know, I'm in production as well as a launch coach. So, you know, I do have, I'm boots on the ground as well. I got started in the biz coming out of my own business in fitness beforehand. And I wanted to get into something that had just a higher ceiling, but also something that I could continue to be my own boss, and that I could work with people, because that's something that I've always enjoyed. And it was actually someone in my old work that was a client of mine that actually was a real estate broker for Coldwell Banker. And she had told me, you know, with your database and your people skills, you know, you would translate really well into real estate if it was ever something that you know, you wanted to do or try a change. And that kind of just planted that seed and got me thinking. And I started just asking questions, and then before you know it, I was closing up shop and jumping both feet into real estate. And, you know, some might ask, well, gosh, why didn't you go to Coldwell Banker? And I asked her about that, and she goes, you know what, I would go to KW, and you're gonna learn to do things the right way there. Swear to God, that's what she said. And so, you know, and it was the best choice that I made. You know, great people, great support, and, you know, just all around really happy with my choice. You know, my business has increased every year. In 2020, it sold over $10 million in volume as a solo agent, looking to start piecing together some help and growing my business as time becomes harder to come by. But I also, you know, really enjoy this part of it, which is as the launch coach and working with new agents through their first few transactions. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let me just share my screen here. All right, and we'll get going. So in getting started in real estate, there's four main paths that we see people take, and we'll talk a little bit about each one. The first one is as a solo agent, and you know, you might say, oh, we're all solo agents, but yes, but a solo agent is someone that, you know, you pass your real estate exam, you get your license, you hang it at a brokerage, and then you just kind of forge ahead on your own. And that's what I'm talking about when I say solo agent. Then you have solo agent with a mentor. And this pairing usually comes up when there's a high producing agent that just honestly is out of hours in the day, and they could really use some help leveraging some of their time, doing some of their day-to-day tasks. And so in exchange for helping them out with some of those tasks, they kind of, you know, agree to show them the ropes. And then there's joining a team. You know, every office, every brokerage, all is going to have real estate teams. And there's teams that can be really small and intimate, and there's teams that can be hundreds and hundreds of people and cover multiple states or countries as well. So they can really vary in that respect. And then there's solo agent with a coach. And that's just, you know, solo agent that is working through a coaching program to help, you know, get them traction and get them moving quicker than they would on their own. So just from tracking statistics over the last decade, We know that we can pretty much cross out the first two, because the gap between the first two and the second two, as far as making it through your first 2 years, is huge. You know, they say 80 to 90% of people that get into this business do not make it. And I think a lot of that big chunk of that percentage is that first spot, that solo agent. You know, I think, and you guys, whether you just got into the business or you've been in it a little bit, you're going to realize that you barely scratched the surface of what you need to know to navigate this business successfully, to be able to service your clients successfully. And, you know, it's a hard road with support. And if you choose to go it completely alone, that you're making it that much steeper of a climb. So, and I'm not saying that to scare anybody, but you know, you got to understand too that this is probably one of the easiest paths to start your own business. You know, so much of the setup and the costs and everything else is taken care of by a brokerage, and you're getting to start your own business. But you have to, just because it was easier to set up doesn't mean it's easier to run and easier to succeed. So really taking that seriously, that, you know, you are starting your own business, and that comes with all the challenges that brings. So keeping that in mind. So, and then solo agent with a mentor, a lot of people think, well, that sounds like it could be a good way to go. And look, once in a while, this works out. Where this oftentimes fails is a lot of times, yes, out of the gates, that mentor is going to give that new agent a whole bunch of things. Hey, show these clients some homes, sit this inspection, help me out with some of this, you know, day-to-day administrative work. So they're getting to do a lot of these tasks, but they're not really getting the sit down training and education to build a solid foundation so that they can grow their own business, and they can learn how to succeed and maybe create their own team one day, or just become a really, you know, high producing solo agent. So oftentimes after, you know, 3 to 6 months of kind of doing these repetitive tasks, solo agents like, okay, I can show homes now, I can sit inspections, and I get the administrative part, but I want more. And so oftentimes that's kind of where that breakup tends to happen. So keeping that in mind, you know, and also just because they're a high performing agent doesn't necessarily mean they're a great teacher. And that's not a knock against them. I mean, some of the greatest athletes in the world couldn't coach the sport that they're fantastic in to save their lives. They're just not built that way. So, you know, keeping that in mind as well. But sometimes it works out. Sometimes it's the start of a team, actually. Sometimes that's kind of that plants the seed to actually get that person to actually create a full-on team. So that leaves us with joining a team or solo agent with a coach as statistically the highest probability of, you know, succeeding in this business. So, you know, let's talk a little bit about these, and let me start with teams, and just kind of start with kind of a high level overview of what a team looks like. What is a team? Now, I told you teams come in all shapes and sizes, but, you know, just to kind of give you a generic sense, a team generally starts when there's an agent high producing that wants to grow their business, and they just can't grow it anymore on their own. So they need to expand. So once they create a team, their position turns into what's called the rainmaker. That's someone who runs the team. And, you know, oftentimes they'll start with a showing assistant, because showing homes, as you guys know or will know, is one of the more time consuming things that we do in this business. You know, you're out there driving from A to B to C to D, from town to town, area to area. And so, you know, this is something that's great leverage for a rainmaker to bring on, is someone that they can give buyers to show them homes that they're interested in. And then they'll probably look at bringing on a buyer's agent. And this is usually an experienced agent that can work and handle any buyers that the team has. And then together with the showing assistant, they can start handling the buy side of the business. And they might bring on multiple buyer's agents and showing assistants. Again, just depends on the team and their rate of growth. At this point, though, what's essential for a team to succeed is they have to bring on some administrative staff. So whether that's, you know, one full-time person or a couple, a good admin is the backbone of a successful team, because these people take care of so much behind the scenes stuff. And it's all the scheduling, all the marketing, all the transaction management, all the back end systems. You know, they keep all the communications between everyone smooth, and they make sure that the client is being taken care of. So super important piece to the puzzle that our teams. And then, you know, the Rainmaker is going to start looking to bring on help on the listing side. So they'll bring on a listing specialist or two. And eventually, the ultimate goal for someone that starts a team is to be able to step out of production and sit back, and they got this well-oiled machine working and making them money, and they're, you know, looking at semi-retirement at that point. So again, that's a really high level overview, and there could be a lot of other parts in there, but hopefully that kind of gives you the gist of what a team looks like. For anyone looking at a team, I think there's 3 primary value components that you should take into consideration. One is their coaching, training, and education. You know, you want to make sure that they have a system and a process set up for your growth, your education, so that you are building your knowledge in this business so that you can one day, you know, really thrive on your own. Because, you know, I'm guessing most people that join a team, that's not their lifelong goal, is to be on a team forever. You know, they're using it to grow and then to launch themselves into their own, you know, real estate world. So finding out what that looks like for a team you're looking at. And then also it's that exact administrative support that I just spoke about. You want to really, that's so important, because that is, like I said, that keeps the wheels moving, and that's going to determine how well that team is run. And so making sure that administrative support is there to give you everything you need and to be part of a team that runs very smoothly. And then lastly, it's leads. Now, not all leads come from the team, but all transactions are split with the team. So keep that in mind. You know, teams are usually a 50-50 split, and that's pretty much the norm. And as a new agent, you know, you're going to be given lots of avenues to generate leads. Sometimes this will be cold calling. Sometimes this will be open houses. This will be door knocking. And as you start to grow as an agent, as your conversion rate starts to improve, you might start getting some paid leads. You know, anybody can buy leads. Any one of us can buy leads, and leads can vary in how good they are, or we call them warm or cold leads. And but know that leads can be very expensive, and that's why a Rainmaker will wait until you have a better conversion rate to hand you over some of these leads, because I know some of Zillow's leads are $700 for one name and one phone number. So, and that's whether you get it or not. So they want to make sure they're giving that to somebody that they know can convert. So keeping in mind that and knowing that is kind of how it will work, and you kind of work your way up the pecking order and get to the point where you're earning some of those leads as well. Additional benefits of a team, a social component. If you're someone that thrives working in a group environment, it's going to give you a little bit more of that. Teams do a lot of their work together, a lot of their scripts, their lead generation, appointments, you know, they do this together. And so if you're someone that struggles doing things on your own a bit, that can be sometimes an avenue to look at as a benefit. Also, it gives you a little bit more of a structure, more of a job-like structure, because like I said earlier, they do like to do things together. So they're going to set up a schedule, and you know, you're expected to follow it. So if you're somebody that has always had a job, has always punched a clock, and you don't think that you're capable of managing your own time and time blocking, this can be something that can benefit you. So it just depends. Now, if you're somebody that is really getting into real estate for the freedom that you have to schedule your own day, then this could be the opposite. So, you know, again, it depends on you and what you're looking for and your path. So, you know, that gives you a kind of a pretty good overview on teams. Please ask any questions you have on that at the end. And then let me talk a minute about coaching. What does a coach do? I mean, what does a coach do in anything, whether it's business or sport? Accountability, direction, education, motivation are parts of a coach's job. When we start with somebody, we sit down and do a one-on-one, and we'll talk through some goals. We'll put some specific metrics on paper. We'll talk about different avenues of lead gen and what might be best for you. And we'll start to give you direction as far as putting together a plan for you to utilize those lead gen avenues to hit your goals. And, and then through education and motivation, make sure you're learning this business, as quickly and, efficiently as possible. Because there is a lot to learn, and if you haven't woken up and said, gosh, this is overwhelming yet, you will. And because you are going to get lots of things put on top of you, whether it's from the MLS and their classes and their stuff, or it's from KW with everything that they have to offer. It can become a lot to try to sift through and figure out, what you should be focused on now and what you can kind of put off for a little bit. So we kind of help you to navigate that a bit. And then obviously motivation, this is a 100% commission job, and that comes with some ups and downs, especially in the beginning. It can be like a big roller coaster. Oh my God, I got 2 clients. This is amazing. And you're top of the world. And then all of a sudden it's crickets for a couple months. So, anything like that, their motivation is a key factor. And also knowing though, that as you start to build your business and you start to get to the point where you start getting referrals, repeat businesses, stuff like that, that roller coaster starts to level out. And those big ups and those big downs, they get a little bit less because it gets a little more consistent. Consistency is a great thing in this business. So something to shoot for. What a coach does not do is make you successful. And, some people ask, why do you put that there? And it's every, several times a year, there's always, we always come up with a situation where somebody will just, join a team or jump into coaching. But then they just that's all they do. They don't engage, they don't plug in, they don't, we don't hear from them. And several months later, they just kind of say, this wasn't really working for me. I'm going to try a different route. This is your own business, and we're here to give you systems, processes, guide you, give you accountability, but accountability should not be mistaken for, being your boss. Should not be mistaken for somebody that's going to do it for you. And that's I don't care what avenue you take, what path you take in this business, you have to own that. You have to take that responsibility from day one. And I'm just being real with you up front, because I'd rather you not learn that the hard way and fumble through and then, have wasted several months before really kind of figuring that out. So that's what that piece is there for. Things you can expect in our coaching program. We know that just from people within our coaching program, from the ones that plug in compared to the ones that don't plug in, it's a 700% difference in productivity in contracts being written. Last year, we did over $110 million in volume just in our Kirkland office in the coaching program. So, we know that those people that are plugging in, they are getting the results, $110 million worth of results. So we know that the people doing the work, are reaping the benefits. We hold weekly group coaching sessions, and these are for, we have several of these for different levels of coaching. These sessions right now, they're over Zoom, and in a normal time, they'd be in the office. And I think we're getting closer to getting back to that point where we can do a hybrid. But, basically these coaching sessions, they can be anywhere from 5 to 20 people in them. And I'll come to these classes with set topics to cover. And it could be anything from talking about buyer seller presentations, objection handling, the current state of the market, you name it, we cover it. And sometimes just in checking in at the start of one of these sessions, topic will get brought up and we'll run with that for an hour. But anyway, it's a great place to not only, get a lot of great information and things to work on, but it's also a great place to start meeting your peers and other people that are in the same place in business as you. And a little bit like what, I was talking about with teams earlier about that social aspect, especially when we get back in the office, this can really be a piece of that. And this can give you that camaraderie. And I think there's a power to that. I think, collaborating and working together with other people at the same level you're at, whether you're saying, hey, let's work on some scripts together, or let's go do an open house together, or knock a neighborhood. I really encourage you to take that opportunity, because, one, you always have something different to learn from somebody else and how they do things. And I think there's a power in numbers. They say if you want to do something fast, do it alone, but if you want to go far with something, do it together. And so I think, keep that mindset that there are people that you could connect with, that you could work with, and then some cool stuff could happen from it. Then we do individual coaching, which we'll do usually once a month. And these one-on-one sessions are mainly to talk about your business, talk about your goals. Are you on track? Are you off track? What do we need to adjust? That's what these sessions are for, because we want to make sure we're keeping focused on you as the business. It's not just all about a buyer and a seller and getting a couple transactions. We want to make sure you're building something that can last a long time, and so we want to be sure that that's being talked about and addressed regularly. And then we have spot sessions, and this is support for working with any client or any transaction, because we don't want anything to slip through the cracks. So if you're, working with a client, working on a transaction, and you got an issue, you can text, call, email. We can jump on a Zoom if we have to, and we'll work through it. Whether it's strategizing on putting an offer together, reviewing your offers, which we do on all of our offers and have to for your first 2 years in business, to if you're on the listing side, I've got all these offers in, and then, how do I best manage it, and how do I best get the price as high as possible? Well, we'll help you strategize with that and make sure you're getting the best result for your client, which that's the end goal, to start to build your, reputation in this business, so you can start getting referrals, repeat business, etc. Then, of course, mindset strategies. Mindset is 80% of this business, and it's, it can work for you and it can work against you. And we, will be sure to work with you to bring the best out in your mindset and know how to quiet that negative voice that rears its head from time to time. And then time management. I talked earlier about this, and for some people, it's a change. It's a change from what they're used to, and maybe you've always been an employee, and so knowing that you can show up and not do anything all day long, and you'll never get in trouble, you'll never get fired, you'll never get yelled at, but you also won't get a paycheck. So figuring out how do I best schedule my day, how do I block my time, how do I make sure I'm doing this, most efficiently, especially when you start getting some clients. In the beginning, it's not too hard to plan out your day, because it's going to be basically about learning systems and processes and education, which, they don't throw you for a loop. You get a couple clients pulling you in every direction, and that starts throwing all those other things out of whack. We want to make sure you can do both, because we want to make sure that when you're done with those clients, you've been still doing the work to put people in your pipeline, and you have stuff coming down the pipe. Because if you drop all that to deal with your clients, what's going to happen when those deals finish? You're not going to have any business ready to go, and you're going to start all over with your lead gen and everything else. So trying to find ways to make sure that you're able to handle everything that's coming at you in as effective and efficiently as possible. And then support using Keller Williams business models. And I don't know if you guys have read yet the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, but if you haven't, I would highly suggest it. It's one of, across all brokerages, probably one of the most popular real estate books out there, and really lays out some great templates for how to really build a business in real estate. And, we follow that, quite closely. And then knowing that we're a safe and confidential place For any conversations we have, any meetings we have, it all stays between us unless you tell me otherwise. You know, sometimes if you have some amazing situation that has happened, I'll ask you, you know, I'd love to be able to share this with the group. Do I have your permission to do that? And if you say yes, then I will. But other than that, it stays between us. What do we expect from people in our program? You know, we like people to have the mindset getting into this, that they can do a minimum of one listing, get one buyer agreement or one mutually accepted purchase and sale agreement per month. Now, we don't hold your feet to the fire. We're not going to throw you out of coaching if you don't do this, but we want you to get into this feeling that this is in the realm of possibility, because it is. And we also know that in our marketplace, in our price point, if you're doing this, you're making a very good living. And we know that when you get started, you're going to set your own goals, and those will supersede this. But just out of the gate, we want people to feel like, that's something I totally can get behind. And then tracking your business. You know, any successful business, they keep track of what they do so they know what works and what doesn't work. And you're going to have a lot of trial and error, you know, situations. You're going to have different types of lead gen that you try, you know, different types of advertising, different types of scripts. And, you know, if you're just kind of waking up every day and just kind of shooting from the hip and just trying something and not really have a plan with it, you can't really tell what's working, what's not, if you can't kind of look back and say, okay, I've been doing this for 3 months and these have been the results. Based on these results, I'm going to double down on this because this has really paid off. Or, you know what, I haven't really gotten out of this what I put into it, and I'm gonna shift, I'm gonna pivot and try something else. So, you know, we believe that tracking your business is really important. We try to give you guys some tools to help you do that easily. And then open and honest communication. If you're having any issues, whether it's with the business, with anybody, with a client, with another broker, with us, we just ask that you know, have a conversation with somebody. You know, we'd love it to be us. And I say this because every once in a while, you know, people, you know, that mindset thing I was saying, and they get in their own head, they get in that negative mindset space, and they just go down a self-destructive path. And this person, you know, may have had great potential and had a lot to give, and they just went down a bad path and ended up out of the business. And I mean, every single one of us has blind spots. You know, there's no getting around that. And sometimes a second set of eyes can, you know, kind of make someone see things at a different angle. And, you know, that could be the difference in turning something around for somebody. So, you know, we want to make sure that you're given every opportunity to succeed in this business. And so, you know, give yourself that same opportunity. Biggest thing, whatever path you take in this business, show up, plug in, show up, do the work, show up for yourself, show up for your business. And that's the only way that the good results are going to happen. So, you know, like I said, it doesn't matter what path you go down. This is probably the number one thing that I can leave with you today is show up for your business. We have a coaching website for those in our program, and we're continually adding to this, and this is filled with just tons of resources, from instructional videos, buyer seller presentations, all sorts of scripts for different, you know, scenarios, transactional documents, how to fill them out. You know, I mean, we have one of our most popular videos on here is how to write your first offer, and step by step, going through the MLS, going through transaction desk, down to how to get them signed in AuthentiSign. It's on here. If we hear somebody with the same question more than once, we'll try to put something on here to address that, so that 24/7 you can jump on here and most likely find an answer to what you're looking for. We also have what we call our 100-day success plan, and we created this plan just because of the number of people that were saying that when we check in with them, saying, I'm just overwhelmed with what I should be doing right now. There's so much stuff, and I don't know what's important today, tomorrow, in a month, 3 months. So we created this plan so that we can put in here all the very most important things that you should be accomplishing in your first 100 days. And, you know, and each item is also has a link. If there's a link to something you should be doing with this, whether it's a website or a video or whatnot, and then you can click it completed. And if you're stuck on something, you can click need support, automatically sends me an email and I can check in with you on it. But it's something that if you spend time in this every week, you know, at the end of 100 days, by the time you're through with this, you will have a very good working knowledge of what it takes to succeed in this business. So it's a great tool. Each person has their own individualized link to this. It's their own plan, and a great thing to work on. And then you can know that you can kind of drown out everything coming in from you from the outside, because everything that is most important is in here and in the order that you should be doing it. So a great tool. We have our own private Facebook group, and, you know, we'll put on here people's successes, you know, for sale, solds. People have needs, you know, looking for help on an open house, looking for help showing some homes, you name it, it's on here. We also, with those group coaching sessions, we record those and we'll catalog them on here for everybody, because we know that, you know, not everyone can make it every week to the live one. They might be with their clients, they might be at another job, they might be, you know, with their kids. So we want to make sure that you don't miss out on that content. So we do catalog those here for you, and you can go back through the library and see any of the past ones as well. So for our compensation for coaching, for new agents, it's 25% of the gross commission income for your first 2 transactions. And after your first 2 transactions, you move into what's called our growth coaching group, and it drops to 15% for the next 4 transactions. So it drops because, you know, you need the most help when you're brand new. And, you know, so that is a higher percentage. And then after 2, hopefully, you know, you're starting to get the hang of it a bit, and we bring it down to 15. And then again, you move into what's called our growth coaching group, and that moves you into coaching with David Monroe. And David Monroe is also out of the Kirkland office, and he also runs all of the productivity coaching programs in Ben Kinney companies. So Kirkland is the flagship office for our coaching program, and it's the only program that has more than 1 coach in it. We also, David's wife, Trish, also does some coaching at our top end group, our momentum group, and she does what's called ontological coaching, which is all about mindset. And I'll talk about that a bit as well in a moment. So this next bit is for when we have a agent that comes over maybe from another brokerage that has some experience, and they'll oftentimes, depending on you know what kind of business they've done, they would come in at 15%. After you've completed the 6 transactions, you've effectively completed the terms of our coaching agreement. So at that time, you could go on to do whatever you like, whether you want to start a team, you want to just be a solo agent, you know, whatever avenue you want. We do have a lot of people that choose to stay in coaching, and you know, they can move up into what's called our momentum group. And we have people in this group that are doing from $10 to $30 million a year in volume. And those group coaching sessions are really like a high level mastermind. And there's some really great camaraderie. There's some really great collaboration that comes out of that. And that 15% drops substantially at that level based on their volume and how fast they're capping. We'll see that get down to under 5% at times. So our goal is always to make coaching feel better than free. And what I mean by that is that the business you're getting because of it far exceeds any money you're putting into it. This is kind of a breakdown, an example off a $500,000 purchase and a $15,000 commission. Kind of shows you the difference if you're looking at a team, if you're looking at coaching in the first 2 transactions and coaching in the next 4, how it kind of breaks out. And we'll follow up with you, all of you guys, and send you a copy of this as well as our coaching agreement just to look over, but it has this slide in there as well. And, you know, from there we can answer any questions that you might have as well. But that's what I have. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. And you'll also have our information, and you can reach out via email, text, or phone. And if it's something you're interested in, we can, you know, set it up very easily. If a team is something you're interested in, I would encourage you to talk to some of the office staff and, get some recommendations. And like I said, if that is a route you're going, be sure to ask questions. Be sure to check and see, do they have some of the systems that are going to help you grow? And, make sure that those pieces are in place for you to succeed. And that I think, again, go in making informed decisions on whatever avenue you choose. And it's going to give you a better chance at success down the road in the long run.
Yeah, I completely second that. For anybody who's listening to this, if you do decide that you want to get onto a team or get into coaching, or you just want to learn more about either one, reach out to any one of us. We can fill you in more on that, what your options are in terms of support within your new business. And definitely ask questions, ask a lot of questions. Make sure that what you're looking at really does fit what your goals are, because each team does have different goals, and with a team you tend to adopt to their goals, versus in coaching you are a little more in control of your own. So it just really depends on what your motivation is for being in the business and what you're wanting to see your business become. So we can all definitely help you with that, picking your right path to production.
Yeah, and there's not a right or wrong answer, and that's I think, it's a different answer for everybody, and it doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just, it's sometimes in life we try to all fit in this mold, and real estate does not have a mold. You take your own path and make that mold as you go. So, do your homework and do what's best for you, and that will bring the rewards.
Totally. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dave. I put Dave P's information in the chat, so you can reach out to him with any more questions you have about coaching. If you want to take a peek at what that coaching contract looks like, just reach out. So Dave was a little bit ahead of schedule, which means we get a longer lunch. So you guys are free to do whatever you want. We'll get started right at 12:30. Usually I'm the one that starts at 12:30. Today it's going to be Janine. So she's going to be going through all sorts of laws, regulations, contract stuff, DOL marketing guidelines, all the things that you can get in trouble for and how to avoid that. So I will see you guys back here at 12:30 on the dot.
Take care, everybody.